Chapter 101 Yin-Yang Eyes of Ice and Fire. After the rest of the royal fighting team departed from the Wuhan mimicry training field, Yu Tianheng finally gathered the courage to speak. "Teacher Qin," he began hesitantly. "Is something wrong?" Qin Ming glanced over at Cheng Xiao, who remained silent at his side, then turned back to Yu Tianheng with a sigh. "Tianheng, have you heard back from your father and grandfather yet? Are they willing to let you go train at Shrek Academy with your uncle?" Yu Tianheng scratched the back of his head, a nervous twitch in his voice. "I haven't gotten an answer. I did hear they held a family meeting about it, though." "Ah," Qin Ming murmured, a sparkle lighting his eyes. Then he smiled and clapped Yu Tianheng on the shoulder. "Don't worry if you haven't heard back yet. We'll manage." "Okay, teacher," Yu Tianheng replied, relief washing over his face. At Qin Ming's nod, he turned and hurried out of the arena. Once Yu Tianheng's retreating figure was out of sight, Qin Ming shook his head and laughed. He gave Cheng Xiao an affectionate shake on the shoulder. "You've got quite the hidden talent, you know that?" Cheng Xiao flexed his fingers and shook his head with a wry smile. "Even if the entire royal fighting team teamed up against me, they probably still couldn't win." Qin Ming chuckled. "Your martial soul is unique. It boosts your physical strength far beyond what your soul power rank alone would allow." Cheng Xiao shrugged. "I suppose that helps." He paused, frowning as a new thought struck him. "By the way, did you say Du Guyan is bringing her grandfather by the academy soon?" Qin Ming nodded. "Yeah, she mentioned that Grandfather Dugu is quite keen to meet you." "Meet me?" Cheng Xiao arched an eyebrow. He thought for a moment, then asked, "Is it because I managed to neutralize that green phosphorus snake venom?" "Exactly." Qin Ming grinned. "Duguyan's grandfather is a legendary toxin master. You cured the very poison he prides himself on. That alone would pique anyone's curiosity." They left the mimicry training zone together, exchanging a few more light-hearted jabs before parting ways at dinner. Later that evening, Cheng Xiao replayed Qin Ming's words in his mind. If Grandfather Dugu truly wanted to meet him, why not take the initiative? After all, his body was naturally immune to toxins and all manner of malignant conditions. None of Dugubo's specialties could harm him. Still, he decided not to approach Duguyan's quarters directly. Instead, he set off to find Ye Lingling first. Perhaps she could help smooth the way for that long-awaited introduction. There were only two women on the royal fighting team, Ye Lingling and Du Guyan, and both of them had become fast friends with Cheng Xiao. So when Cheng Xiao casually asked Ye Lingling to arrange an audience with Du Guyan's grandfather, Ye Lingling couldn't help but raise an eyebrow in surprise. Why would Cheng Xiao, a rising soul master, need to see someone as legendary as Du Gubo? Although puzzled, Ye Lingling didn't hesitate. She approached Du Guyan and explained Cheng Xiao's request, feeling sure that Du Guyan would politely decline. To her astonishment, Du Guyan not only agreed at once, but even summoned her grandfather on the spot. Under Ye Lingling's eager questioning, Du Guyan finally admitted that it was Du Gubo himself who wanted to meet Cheng Xiao, without ever having mentioned it to anyone else. The revelation left Ye Lingling wide-eyed. What could possibly compel a titled Douluo-level powerhouse like Du Gubo to take a special interest in a young soul master? With Ye Lingling's help, Cheng Xiao quickly reconnected with Du Guyan, who told him that her grandfather was waiting for him in the heart of the Sunset Forest. As Cheng Xiao set out for the meeting, Ye Lingling watched him go with mounting curiosity. Whatever lay ahead in that golden-tinted woodland, it was clear that Du Gubo had plans that involved Cheng Xiao in ways no one yet understood. To ensure Cheng Xiao wouldn't lose his way, Du Guyan tore a scrap of parchment into a rough hand-drawn map of the Sunset Forest, marking the exact spot of the poison formation. With map in hand, Cheng Xiao set out at once. The forest lies only a day's travel north of Tiando City, serving as that city's premier soul beast hunting ground. Most soul masters from the surrounding region flock here to hunt mixed-type soul beasts. Though far smaller than the famed Star Forest, the Sunset Forest offers its own unique challenges. The Star Forest sits at the very heart of the Douluo Continent and reigns as the largest soul beast reserve in existence, its steamy, tropical canopy teeming with powerful, exotic creatures. By contrast, the Sunset Forest occupies the continent's northern reaches. It never plunges into true winter, but its milder temperatures sustain mostly temperate flora rather than the lush rainforest growth of the star forest. As a result, the mightiest soul beasts generally prefer the warmth and humidity found in the tropical jungles of the star forest, leaving the sunset forest to the hardier and often subtler creatures that thrive in cooler climes. In the frigid depths of sunset forest, soul beasts boasting more than 10,000 years of cultivation are exceedingly rare, and even those few seldom exceed 50,000 years. It had been several hours since Cheng Xiao ventured beneath the twisted canopy. Thanks to the detailed map Duguyan had given him, every waypoint was clearly marked, and so far he'd only crossed paths with beasts at the 1,000-year level. Shielded by his shadow soldiers, these creatures, though naturally aggressive, hadn't dared to attack a lone, seemingly frail human. Guided by the map's precise annotations, Cheng Xiao soon arrived at the outer edge of Dugubo's poison formation. A sickly green miasma hung in the air, coalescing into a thick, noxious fog that swallowed the forest in a haze of poison. Visibility dropped to mere feet, every tree and boulder reduced to a shadowy silhouette. The unknownness of it all sent a chill down his spine. After all, when you stare into an abyss, it often stares right back. Cheng Xiao slowed his steps, eyes narrowing as he peered into the swirling green. "This isn't ordinary poison fog," he murmured. From the heaviness in the air and the way the mist seemed almost alive, he sensed something far more sinister at work. With a steadying breath, he readied himself to press deeper into the formation, every nerve on high alert for the dangers that lay ahead. "It smells oddly sweet." Cheng Xiao lifted his hand to his nose, inhaling the toxic haze lingering in the air. He rubbed his chin, eyes narrowing in thought. To gauge the poison array's strength, he had summoned one of his shadow soldiers, but to his surprise, the phantom warrior strode through the swirling miasma completely unharmed. Cheng Xiao supposed the soldier's energy body nature made it impervious to any toxin. Seeing that his test subject was useless, Cheng Xiao shrugged and strode into the heart of the poison array himself. The moment his boot touched the ground within the circle, dark green vapor surged toward him like a living thing. He could almost feel each tendril of mist snaking into his pores, as if it planned to dissolve him from the inside out. He stood his ground. Thanks to the great wizard's blessing, no poison or malady could harm him. The toxic air, so fierce in appearance, failed to faze him. Satisfied, Cheng Xiao continued forward through the undulating fog, utterly unscathed. After brushing past the last of the poison arrays, Cheng Xiao stepped into a dense forest, untouched by any traps. The instant he passed beneath the canopy, a wave of blistering heat washed over him, undeniably the aura of the yin-yang eye of ice and fire. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the currents of warmth guide him toward his quarry. A few yards on, he reached the rim of a massive, inverted cone valley. Thick, humid air rose from its depths, carrying the acrid tang of sulfur. Cheng Xiao's lips curved in a half-smile. "Not far now," he murmured. With that, he summoned his shadow soldier, a human-faced demon spider. The creature erupted into being at his side. Cheng Xiao vaulted onto its broad, spindly back, and the spider scuttled effortlessly over the jagged rocks. A swarm of smaller spiders poured down the slope behind them, filling the humid air with the rasp of countless legs. What would have been a perilous descent for any ordinary human posed no challenge to his otherworldly steed. Ahead, the valley yawned ever wider, and at its heart, the yin-yang eye awaited. Chapter 102. Can you help me detoxify? The spider lashed out with all 8 legs, but Cheng Xiao merely planted his foot on its head and slid down the mountainside as though he were gliding. In the blink of an eye, both he and the spider had descended from the summit into the valley below. Once they landed, the spider melted back into the shadows at Cheng Xiao's feet. Before him lay the famed yin-yang hot spring, its oval pool divided perfectly in two. One half shimmered a milky white, the other a vivid vermilion. Miraculously, despite sharing the same basin, the waters never mingled. Each color remained stubbornly on its own side, forming a living taijitu. From Cheng Xiao's vantage point, it looked like a massive yin-yang emblem carved out of the earth itself. Surrounding the spring was a riot of plant life in every shape and hue, transforming the compact valley into a botanical Eden. Even Cheng Xiao's own ice-fire yin-yang eyes, accustomed to sensing elemental energies, rippled with new impressions as he stepped forward. Though the valley wasn't large, it teemed with exotic flora, an oasis of life concealed within the mountainside. Cheng Xiao took a deep breath, the mingled sense of steam and blossoms filling his nostrils. Here, in this hidden cradle of warmth and vitality, he felt the promise of purification, and perhaps a chance to rid himself of the toxins that had been plaguing him for so long. Cheng Xiao swept his gaze across the glade, admitting to himself with a faint blush that he didn't recognize a single plant. The fairy herb known as the yin-yang eyes of ice and fire was legendary, and yet here he was, completely lost. No matter, he reminded himself. As soon as he found Douluo, whose obsession with botany was well known, she'd identify every blossom and explain its properties. All around him, flowers of extraordinary beauty competed for his attention, their petals shimmering in every color imaginable. Vines bowed under the weight of plump, exotic fruits, and many of the plants emanated a soft inner glow. Their otherworldly aura spoke of untold power, but Cheng Xiao barely registered them. His focus was fixed on the true prize at the heart of the valley. There, nestled amid the lush foliage, lay the yin-yang eyes of ice and fire, two massive, gem-like growths, one deep crimson, the other pure white, set like colossal jade eyes within the undergrowth. The air here trembled with raw life force. The very vitality of heaven and earth pulsed around him. If he could cultivate in this place, his progress would surely skyrocket. A thrill of anticipation ran through him as he stepped forward. Then, just as his hand reached out toward the nearest orb, a figure cloaked in dark green slipped silently from the shadows behind him. "Take another step, boy, and don't say I didn't warn you." Douluo's eyes narrowed like a viper's as he fixed his gaze on Cheng Xiao's back. He'd never expected someone who just neutralized green phosphorus snake venom to find this hidden chamber so quickly and to treat the poison array here as no threat at all. It both baffled and intrigued him. Cheng Xiao halted at the warning. From the shifting gloom around him, dozens of shadow warriors peered through an umbral veil, ready to strike the old man in dark green at any moment. Though individually none could match Douluo's power, their absolute loyalty to their king made them a deadly force. After all, their very existence relied on him. Without the king, there would be no shadow soldiers. Douluo's lips curled in a thin smile. "You solved the serpent's venom in moments. Impressive. But this is different. I am the one who controls the array. One false move, and it's not just your life on the line." Cheng Xiao slowly turned to face him, expression calm but resolute. Behind him, the shadow warriors tensed, silhouettes flickering like pitch-black flames. The chamber walls, etched with runes, pulsed a dull green as if alive. In that eerie glow, Douluo looked every bit the master of this place, until Cheng Xiao raised a single brow. "Then, perhaps you underestimate me," Cheng Xiao said quietly. "I've come too far to retreat now." A moment of deathly silence followed. The only sound was the hum of the activated poison array. Outside the iron-grilled door, distant crackling signaled an approaching storm. Douluo's snake-like smile widened. "Very well," he whispered. "Let us see if your courage matches your skill." With that, he lifted a hand, and the runes on the walls blazed to life. Shadows writhed as the shadow warriors prepared to defend their king, and Cheng Xiao prepared to prove himself. Cheng Xiao's lips curved into an amused smile as he stepped closer. "Douluo, I thought you'd let me explore for a little while longer." Standing before him was the elder Douluo, a slender figure draped in flowing emerald robes, long white hair and beard framing deep-set cheeks, and a pair of jade-green eyes so piercing they seemed to cut right through him. "Let you wander around until you've pillaged every last herb in my garden?" Douluo's voice was soft, but every word struck like a knife. Cheng Xiao raised an innocent brow and swept a hand toward the neatly arranged plots behind him. "Mr. Douluo, surely you haven't harvested a single sprig yet, have you?" A contemptuous snort escaped Douluo. Eccentric to the core and bound by no one's rules but his own, he was not the sort to tolerate trespassers or excuses. "Boy, leave your trespassing aside," he said, folding his hands behind his back. In that moment, the air around him seemed to thicken. Emerald motes of power flickered in his eyes, and a cold, oppressive aura pressed in on Cheng Xiao's senses. "Tell me how you managed to crack Yanyan's green phosphorus snake venom." Dugubo's gaze burned into Cheng Xiao. Every molecule of his tidal Douluo-level soul power coiled like a viper ready to strike. Had he unleashed even a fraction of it, Cheng Xiao wouldn't have lasted a heartbeat. Yet, for now, he held back. Cheng Xiao met his scrutiny with an easy nod. "Mr. Dugu, word on the street is that you're very interested in me," he said, voice calm. "Let me guess, what intrigues you most is how I managed to dispel the green phosphor serpent's venom, yes?" Dugubo neither confirmed nor denied. His cool silence spoke volumes. He never wasted attention on a soul master below level 40, unless that master had cracked something no one else could. It was only because Cheng Xiao had cured his brother Dugu Yan of that lethal venom that Dugubo even bothered to look his way. A faint, self-confident smile curved Cheng Xiao's lips. "Truth is, Mr. Dugu, I don't hold any special antidote. The venom simply doesn't affect me." Dugubo's expression darkened. A surge of crushing soul power rolled off him like a tidal wave, aimed squarely at Cheng Xiao. Killing intent crackled in the air. Out of respect for his brother's friend, he wouldn't strike him down, today. But he wouldn't let this glib youth go unpunished for his arrogance, either. In a moment, Cheng Xiao would learn just how dangerous a tidal Douluo's displeasure could be. Just as the surge of spiritual energy was about to crush him, Dugubo froze in mid-attack, and the pressure dissolved as abruptly as it had formed. Cheng Xiao stood calm and unyielding, meeting Dugubo's fierce glare head-on. "Mr. Dugu," Cheng Xiao began quietly, "am I correct in suspecting that your mastery of poisons has been compromised?" The accusation struck Dugubo like a bolt from the blue. His eyes narrowed, pride warring with confusion. "What do you mean?" he snarled. "I've devoted my life to perfecting toxins. How could my skill ever fail?" Cheng Xiao offered a small, knowing smile. "Your poisons are indeed unmatched, Mr. Dugu, but remember this, the very venom that annihilates your enemies can just as easily turn inward, destroying you and even your descendants. Dugubo only cares about me, so he can extract an antidote to green phosphorus snake venom, and then use it to cure his own poisoning. But by the time you find a cure, I'm afraid Sister Yanzi will already be gone." At those words, Dugubo's face twisted, a cruel light flashing in his eyes. He could not bear the thought of dying himself, yet the idea of losing his granddaughter was even more unbearable. He knew better than anyone how the venom's long-term effects had been building in Dugu Yan's body for over a decade, seeping into her lungs, clinging to her bones. Until now, no remedy had been found, which was why he'd placed all his hopes on Cheng Xiao. But time was running out. If nothing changed, Dugu Yan might not live to see 30. Could he trust this young man standing before him? He had no way of knowing. He doubted Cheng Xiao could have no ulterior motive, but desperate times called for desperate measures. With no other options left, he resolved to cling to the smallest hope. Dugubo fixed Cheng Xiao with a steely gaze, emerald light flickering in his eyes. In a low, hoarse voice, he asked, "Boy, can you help me detox?" Chapter 103. The Cure. Sunlight filtered through the high windows of the healing hall, falling across the cold stone floor. Cheng Xiao studied Lord Dugubo's ashen face as he sat rigidly on a wooden bench. Not far away, on a low cot draped in white silk, lay Dugu Yan, her breathing shallow and uneven. "The toxin in your body," Cheng Xiao began, voice low and steady, "is no ordinary poison. It's the jade phosphorus snake venom, your family's inherited martial spirit. Each generation, the poison grows stronger and more deeply entrenched." Dugubo's hand clenched at his side. "And you're saying you can cure me?" His tone was equal parts hope and suspicion. Cheng Xiao inclined his head. "But it won't be quick. To fully purge a poison that's lingered in your blood for decades requires time. The longer the treatment, the higher our chance of success. I can cleanse you and Dugu Yan completely, but you must be patient." A flicker of anger crossed Dugubo's eyes. He rose abruptly, sending the bench scraping across the floor. "You promised me an immediate detox. Now you tell me it's going to drag on? Is this some kind of trick?" Cheng Xiao remained calm. He moved over to a small table and arranged a jade basin filled with steaming herbal broth alongside several glass vials of special elixir. "Lord Dugu, no remedy can guarantee instant results, especially against a poison passed down through generations. The timeline I gave you corresponds to our success rate. If you rush it, you risk failure. If you don't trust my expertise, there's nothing more I can say." Silence settled between them. Duguyan's eyelids fluttered, and a faint groan escaped her lips. Lord Dugu's stern expression wavered as he glanced at his granddaughter. Finally, he let out a long, ragged breath and sank back onto the bench. Very well, do whatever you must, but mark my words, if either of us dies under your care, you'll answer for it. Cheng Xiao met his gaze unwaveringly. Understood. I will begin the treatment at once. He dipped a jade ladle into the steaming broth, his mind running through each careful step. In that quiet hall, 2 lives now hung in the balance, and only time would tell if the cure could conquer the ancestral venom. Duguyan was still so young, his whole life lay ahead of him. But Dugubo knew grief all too well. His beloved son had died from the venom of the jade phosphorus snake, and his only granddaughter, her dark hair tipped with emerald, was too precious to risk the same fate. For decades, he had dabbled in alchemy and elixirs, yet now an intractable poison rotted within him. No remedy had ever succeeded. Each attempt had only intensified his agony, and in time, he'd given up hope. Your name is Cheng Xiao, isn't it? Dugubo's voice trembled with equal parts desperation and resolve. If you can truly expel this toxin from my body, I grant you free reign of my entire medicinal garden. Take whatever you need. A cautious spark of hope flickered in his eyes. He drew himself up, slid his hands behind his back, and spoke more evenly. Tell me, is there any way to cleanse this poison? Cheng Xiao met his gaze steadily. There is one straightforward method, he said softly. We can funnel every trace of toxin into what's called the soul bone. It's inert, lifeless, so once the poison resides there, it cannot rebound into your flesh. Dugubo's features tightened with concentration. In that moment, he knew he had to trust this stranger, his last chance to reclaim the future he'd thought forever lost. This approach will, at least for now, solve the problem of the toxins coursing through your body. He paused, folding his arms as he studied me. But simple as it is, this method carries serious hidden risks. It's only a stopgap measure, not a permanent cure. Soul bones are extraordinarily rare, and even they have their limits. No one truly knows how much poison a soul bone can absorb before it shatters under the strain. Your jade phosphorus snake emperor venom is far more corrosive and volatile than that of a regular jade phosphorus snake. If you funnel every toxin you produce into the soul bone, you risk overloading it. At some point, when its capacity is exceeded, it may fail entirely. He leaned forward, his voice grave. And there's an even greater danger when you activate soul bone techniques. If the bone hasn't fully recovered its strength and a single drop of venom leaks out, the consequences could be catastrophic. We have no way of predicting the long-term effects such a breach might unleash. I swallowed, tension knotting my chest. Is there no other way? He offered me a calm smile. Rest assured, you don't need to, at least not yet. I have an alternative solution that will safeguard you in the long run. With those words, I felt the first stirrings of hope ripple through me. Cheng Xiao folded his arms and spoke calmly. Starting with the soul bone as a bridge will greatly ease the process. It'll spare you the worst of the agony when the toxins react. Dugubo's eyes narrowed. So your grand plan is for me to fuse with my soul bone first? And then what? A slow smile curved Cheng Xiao's lips as he held up a finger. Mr. Dugu, patience. You can't solve everything at once. Detoxification is a step-by-step process. If you rush it, you'll only make things worse. He paused, then added in a quieter tone. However, if you really can't wait, there is an alternative, an immediate purge of the toxins. But understand this. If we take that route, your poison manipulation skills will be gone forever. Dugubo's face went pale with disbelief. What? Are you kidding me? I've spent my whole life mastering venom. You expect me to give up my greatest strength just to clear some internal poisons? His fists clenched so hard, his knuckles turned white. It would be better to die than to surrender the power that defined him. Dugubo stared at the soul bone in his hand, his mind in turmoil. After all, the titled Douluo, known as the Poison Douluo, renowned for mastering every conceivable toxin, still refused to tinker with the deadliest venoms. If someone of his caliber wouldn't risk it, what chance did Dugubo have? In that instant, pride shattered, and he felt like nothing more than a charlatan. He was trapped between 2 grim options. Option 1, attempt the soul bone transition now, hoping it would bind the poison within, but with no guarantee of stability. Option 2. Purge the poison completely, sacrificing any chance at the transition and almost certainly costing him his life. On paper, the first seemed the lesser evil, but that offered no promise of success. Either way, it felt like a wager too steep to place. Leaning against the cold stone wall, Cheng Xiao watched Dugubo's anguish and thought, I'll have to call Master Ju. Only someone with his Douluo-grade botanical sight can reliably identify these immortal herbs. If I try to pick them myself, I'll only make things worse. Dugubo's shoulders shook as he returned to himself. He lifted his head, voice low and hoarse. Isn't there any safer way? All right, but you'll have to wait. Cheng Xiao looked up, met Dugubo's gaze and chuckled. How long are we talking? Douluo frowned. More than 10 years, I'd say. Cheng Xiao stroked his chin thoughtfully. 10 years? Douluo groaned, throwing up his hands. Fine, I trust you. For now, I'll use the soul bone for the transition. Douluo paused. So I'm supposed to transfer all the toxins into my head soul bone? Cheng Xiao gave him a wry smile. Exactly. With the toxins locked in the head soul bone, you'll at least wait for death in peace. Douluo's face went pale. What am I supposed to do? I've wandered this continent for years just to get a head soul bone. You're not seriously going to send me into the soul beast forest to hunt more soul beasts and farm soul bones, are you? Cheng Xiao waved a hand dismissively. The drop rate for soul bones is already abysmally low. If you actually tried farming them, you'd slaughter every soul beast in the forest within a week. Douluo ran a hand through his hair in frustration. Then what choice do I have? You don't really think you can let an old man like me have all the poisons dissolved, do you? Douluo asked, his voice tinged with skepticism. Don't worry, Cheng Xiao replied with a wave of his hand. He settled himself and closed his eyes, diving into thought. Unlike Tongsan's Xuantian Gong, an inner energy capable of purging toxins and even siphoning them into his soul bone, Cheng Xiao's shadow power was inherently destructive to anything it touched, except himself. It was the very force the Shadow King used to raise corpses and bind them as shadow soldiers. Such an ability, Cheng Xiao knew, seemed ill-suited to the delicate work of healing. Yet if there was any way to adapt its dark might to cleanse Douluo of his poisons, he would find it. Chapter 104. Xiao Kai is not a Kai Dubo watched Cheng Xiao sit motionless, lost in thought. After a heavy sigh, he turned and walked away. He didn't know what solution Cheng Xiao might discover, but for now he still held on to hope. Du Guyan had told him that Cheng Xiao was immune to every poison in existence. Douluo had found that claim hard to believe, until he saw Cheng Xiao stroll out of the lethal poison array surrounding the Ice and Fire Eyes, completely unharmed. Without even using the antidote, Douluo had spent months perfecting. Under normal circumstances, no soul master could survive that trap. It was precisely because of this miracle that Douluo dared to pin his hopes on Cheng Xiao. If the boy returned tomorrow without a cure, the consequences would be dire. At that same moment, Cheng Xiao's consciousness drifted into a boundless darkness. He recognized the oppressive stillness immediately, the resting place of Shadow King Aspen, the very realm where Cheng Xiaoyu had fallen to the Fang King's blade. There was no sound here, no light, only an infinite void pressing in from every side. I didn't expect you to show up here alongside him, the voice said. Before Cheng Xiao could turn, a massive black charger materialized from the depths of shadow, its rider cloaked in ebony plate that gleamed with a cold, starlit radiance. The knight's helm hid every feature, save for two faintly glowing violet slits, eyes that burned with dark purpose and foretold only death. Time itself seemed to still around him. The only sound was the low thunder of his horse's hooves, each strike reverberating through the gloom. At the spoken name, Shadow King Aspen, the surrounding darkness quivered as if in obeisance. Then, as quickly as it came, the blackness fell away. In its place stood a serene pavilion bathed in soft moonlight. The warhorse froze, then dissolved into curling tendrils of shadow, and where Aspen had loomed only moments before, there now stood someone else entirely, Cheng Xiaoyu, dressed crisply in a tailored suit, his calm gaze inscrutable. A little surprised, Aspen's lips curved into a knowing smile. I can see right through your thoughts, Cheng Xiao. In a way, Cheng Xiaoyu and I are the same. When you inherited my power through the system, you became me, and I became you. He paused, letting the words sink in. The real Aspen has returned to his eternal rest. What remains in you now is merely a fraction of his former might. In your world, Aspen has long since faded into nothing, but here, Aspen still endures. Cheng Xiao bowed his head slightly. You're referring to the great wizard's blessing. Exactly. At that, Aspen's deep voice echoed through the pavilion. Outside, the curtains rustled, and a colossal figure appeared. An orc nearly 5 meters tall, clad in jet-black armor and gripping a scepter as massive as a tree trunk. Cheng Xiao's heart skipped a beat. This was the legendary Candiaru, the orc wizard whose hymns embolden the weak and whose body is impervious to every curse. Your Majesty, Candiaru rumbled, dropping to one knee before Aspen. His massive form seemed to hum with restrained power. Then he lifted his gaze to Cheng Xiao, as if recognizing a fellow sovereign. In that brief moment, Cheng Xiao felt the orc wizard's awe at his own latent royal authority and the unmistakable brush of a potent magical blessing. The two towers of magic, Aspen and Candiaru, stood poised to converge their powers upon the shadow soldier at their feet. Cheng Xiao's escort was pitifully weak, nothing more than a handful of ordinary foot soldiers and one barely passable elite. Compared to the late king's guard, it was a far cry from strength. As for Cheng Xiao himself, his power was serviceable at best. Aspen tilted his head, offering Cheng Xiao a wry smile. Cheng Xiao, why don't you tell Candiaru what you intend to do? Cheng Xiao squared his shoulders and faced the great wizard. Great wizard Candiaru, would you teach me magic? Candiaru blinked, clearly taken aback. Magic? You wish to practice sorcery yourself? Indeed, Cheng Xiao said sincerely. If you'll allow it, I hope to learn some of your spells. The wizard glanced over at Aspen, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. Your Highness, are you certain about this? Training a knight in arcane arts. Aspen cut him off with a gentle wave. Trust him, he said. Cheng Xiao has no divine gift from the Creator to rely on. He must grow stronger by his own hand. Give him your guidance. Candiaru studied Cheng Xiao's determined expression, then inclined his head. Very well. Let us begin your instruction. Such a person, stronger than I. As those words left the king's lips, Candiaru's eyes gleamed with arcane light. After a brief pause, he spoke again, his voice low and resolute. Very well, I understand. With that, Candiaru lifted his scepter, calling forth swirling runes of power. At the same moment, Aspen's magic intertwined with the king's, channeling fresh abilities into Cheng Xiao. Instantly, new skill descriptions filled Cheng Xiao's mind. Random slash strike with any weapon in a rapid, unpredictable flurry, dealing massive damage. Ruler's hand harness, the scepter's power to obliterate objects at a distance, no physical contact required. Advanced weapon mastery. Your proficiency with every weapon increases, boosting overall damage. Shadow swap. Instantly exchange positions with a chosen shadow soldier's silhouette. After use, the skill enters cooldown, which shortens as you grow stronger. As the information flooded in, dark energy bubbled to life beneath Cheng Xiao's skin. Then a second, more profound wave of knowledge poured into his consciousness. Candiaru's final blessing, the sovereign's gift of magic. You have now mastered every spell in my arcane arsenal, the voice intoned. You wield the Song of the Fire Dragon, the Hymn of the Giant, the Weave of Curses, the Melody of Healing, and more beyond counting. Cheng Xiao staggered under the torrent of power. Every fiber of his being thrummed with newfound strength, and with it, the promise of unimagined possibilities. Chapter 105. Douluo is very comfortable. Dawn was just breaking when Douluo returned to the Eye of Ice and Fire. Everything felt subtly different from the night before. He cast a sharp glance at Cheng Xiao and instantly sensed a shift in the young man's soul power. Frowning, he demanded, Boy, your soul power was barely at level 38 yesterday. How on earth did you break through overnight? Did you eat those herbs I gave you? Cheng Xiao's lips curved into a knowing smile. No need to worry, Mr. Douluo. I've actually discovered a way to purge all the toxins from your body. Douluo's temper flared. You told me the same thing yesterday, so what's your plan? How are you going to remove every last trace of poison? Unfazed, Cheng Xiao rose to his feet and took 3 deliberate steps forward until he stood directly before Douluo. In a calm, even tone, he said, Mr. Douluo, you don't need to lift a finger. Just relax and let me do everything. Douluo's eyes narrowed to slits. What do you mean by that? I want you to tell me exactly how you'll perform this detox, step by step. Douluo's dark eyes narrowed. All right, boy, if you can truly purge the poison coursing through my veins, I'll agree to your 3 conditions. He held something out, a small orb glowing with an eerie green light. But first, he continued, voice low and even, you must eat this pill. My cultivation may be aged, but I still intend to live 2 more years. Should I die at your hands, you'll join me in the grave. Cheng Xiao regarded the bead in Douluo's palm, a wry smile tugging at his lips. If you believe this little trinket can kill me, I'm eager to see you try. Douluo's expression grew icier. Don't be so quick to mock. This is no ordinary concoction. It's the very essence of my jade phosphorus snake martial soul, forged in the form of the jade phosphorus snake queen. Half my power lies bound within that orb. If this poison claims me, even a titled Douluo would be dragged down alongside. He paused, eyes boring into Cheng Xiao's. And don't presume your unique physique makes you immune. At a silent command, the pill lifted from his hand and hovered before Cheng Xiao. Without hesitation, Cheng Xiao opened his mouth and swallowed it. Silence fell over them both, only the faint pulse of green light marking the gamble they had just made. The moment the pill slid down Cheng Xiao's throat, a warm current flooded his body, settling deep in his dantian. Instead of any pain or discomfort, his limbs felt light and soothed. Douluo watched him coolly and said, You'll feel it almost immediately. This pill only accelerates your cultivation. It carries no harmful side effects. If my method proves effective, I'll extract it again afterward. Cheng Xiao smiled and nodded. Very well, let's begin then. This should ease your worries. Douluo inclined his head in agreement. In truth, he'd engineered this entire arrangement as his escape plan. If Cheng Xiao's technique failed, the boy wouldn't die in his place. And once he slipped away, he could carry off every precious herb in the garden. He didn't know their precise properties, only that they were far from ordinary. Seated cross-legged on the stone floor, the 2 cultivated masters raised their hands in unison. Cheng Xiao wove an intricate hand seal and began chanting a soft, ancient incantation. He deliberately restrained himself from unleashing the full force of the healing song. Doing so would almost certainly strip Douluo of his unique poisoning skills. Instead, he channeled his energy into a refined detoxification spell, carefully guiding healing qi through his own meridians, ready to purge any lingering toxins from Douluo's system without crippling his darker talents. Douluo would be nothing without his poison skill, just a laughingstock. No sooner had he caught Cheng Xiao muttering under his breath than he spun around. What are you mumbling about? He demanded. Cheng Xiao offered a serene smile and placed his palm against Douluo's back. The moment his skin made contact, the elementa, energies of heaven and earth surged into Douluo's body. A dazzling column of purifying aura swept through his veins, flushing out the venom that had corroded his flesh. Despite the power of that first detoxification spell, Cheng Xiao could tell more was needed. He began a second incantation, then a third, each one layering additional cleansing force onto Douluo's system. Dark, foul-smelling vapors curled out from Douluo's pores, tendrils of poison trying to escape. Every time one surfaced, Cheng Xiao's pure energy shattered it instantly, turning it to wisps of smoke that dissipated harmlessly. Throughout the process, Douluo couldn't stifle his relief. Soft moans of comfort slipped from his lips. Inside him, the toxins that had gnawed at his bones and sinews retreated at an astonishing pace. What had been eroded and hollowed by poison knitted itself back together until at last the last vestiges of venom vanished. When the cleansing light finally faded, Douluo stood upright, breathless but whole. He cast a grateful glance over his shoulder at Cheng Xiao, who simply nodded and withdrew his hand, leaving Douluo free of poison for the first time in too long. Cheng Xiao watched Douluo's body tremble as the healing technique finished its work. An hour later, Douluo lay drenched in sweat, yet his aged face shone with a vigor it hadn't known in years. "Good boy," he murmured, voice thick with relief. "I can actually feel the toxins draining away. I didn't expect you to be this good." Douluo sat up, eyes bright with excitement. He hadn't felt anything but pain ever since the toxins began eroding his body, until now. A soft hum of pleasure escaped his lips as he flexed his limbs, marveling at the newfound ease in his joints. Cheng Xiao wiped his brow, offering a tired smile. You seem comfortable. I nearly passed out myself. Douluo laughed, the sound rich and warm. Worth it, he said. Don't forget, I granted you 3 conditions when I asked for your help. I'll have a Douluo level warrior handle the heavy lifting, so you could enjoy yourself. Cheng Xiao's eyes glinted with mischief. In that case, Senior Douluo, how about a little trade? You've already agreed to my 3 conditions. Now I'd like you to accept my 3. I'll even redeem one of the favors you owe me right now in exchange for your agreement. Douluo leaned back, considering the offer. The air between them crackled with unspoken possibilities, but one thing was certain. Neither man intended to leave the bargain unfulfilled. Douluo's face darkened at the jibe. He let out a harsh laugh. 3 conditions for 1? Why not ask for 100, you stinky brat? Cheng Xiao couldn't suppress an inward sigh. So this was Douluo's famed eccentricity. Everyone had warned him. As if reading his thoughts, Douluo snorted. Don't go thinking you're so clever now that you've got the upper hand. When are you going to help Yanyan detoxify? Cheng Xiao met his gaze without flinching. Senior Douluo, you're the only one who can rid Douluo of her poison. Let me bring someone here, someone you promise not to harm. Once I've regained my strength, I'll start her detox immediately. That's my offer. He had no real desire to make Douluo his enforcer. Threatening him over his granddaughter's life felt distasteful, and beside the point, since Cheng Xiao and Douluo were already friends. Grudgingly, Douluo leaned back, his eyes narrowing as he considered the proposal. Douluo's gaze was wary as he sat across from Cheng Xiao. After a long pause, he finally spoke in a low, cautious voice. You may bring someone here, he said, but first tell me exactly who he is, and just how strong. Cheng Xiao met the elder's anxious look with a calm smile. Senior Douluo, you already know the man I have in mind, he replied. As for power, he's every bit your equal. Then Cheng Xiao added gently, please, be gentle with him. He's the one who detoxified you. Chapter 106, Trouble is Brewing. With the last traces of toxin expelled by Cheng Xiao's skillful hands, Douluo rose to his feet. He didn't linger another moment in the Valley of Ice and Fire's yin-yang eyes. After a brief exchange about the companions Cheng Xiao planned to recruit, Douluo set off immediately for Tiando Royal Academy. His sole focus now was purging the poison in Douluo's body. Everything else could wait. Left alone amid the valley's otherworldly flora, Cheng Xiao gathered his robes. His mission had been straightforward. Win Douluo's consent to bring Douluo here so she could study the fairy grass's remarkable effects firsthand. If, along the way, old tensions between Douluo and Douluo could be soothed, so much the better. He paused to admire the iridescent blooms and twisting vines clinging to frost-cracked rock. Rumor held that countless priceless medicinal herbs hid here, yet outside of the fairy grass, Cheng Xiao recognized none. A soft sigh escaped him. All right, he murmured, time to return to the academy, and while I'm at it, I'll send word to Master Xiaopi. With that, he turned and vanished down the winding path, already plotting how to unlock the valley's secrets and perhaps mend a few broken bonds on the way. Cheng Xiao's affinity for flora made identifying the immortal herbs effortless. He knelt among the glowing plants, probing their leaves and petals as if in silent conversation. With a thought, he summoned his spectral companion, the shadow soldier ghost leopard, which materialized beside him in a swirl of shadows. Then, following Douluo's instructions, he activated his ice and fire yin-yang eyes, methodically scanning each herb from root to tip. Once he'd cataloged them all, he gave a curt nod to his phantom leopard and slipped away into the mist-shrouded valley. In Tiando City, the Shrek Seven Devils trudged toward Lanba Academy, their spirits weighed down by an unexpected blow. They had barely arrived at Tiando Royal Academy when Prince Sui Sing had unceremoniously expelled them, an outcome no one had foreseen. A tense silence hung over the group as each member wrestled with wounded pride and simmering anger. Tongsan felt it most keenly of all. Since his first clash with the Royal Do team, his cultivation had stalled at the early stage, nothing like the swift progress of his original timeline, and Xiao Wu had yet to awaken as his spiritual pillar. His thoughts burned with one desperate goal, to grow stronger and fast. At the rear of the group, Xiao Wu, Juju King, and Ning Rongrong shared worried glances, their own resolve tested as they followed Tang San into an uncertain future. Xiao Wu's heart sank when she realized Cheng Xiao wasn't anywhere at Tiando Royal Academy. Ning Rongrong and Juju King, walking at her side, exchanged puzzled looks. With spirits low, the Shrek party pressed on to Lanba Academy. Upon arrival, Flanders and the others easily breezed through the Academy's teacher evaluation. After all, their reputations and abilities spoke for themselves. Under the guidance of several Lanba instructors, they were then led toward the campus's outer woods. They'd barely been walking 10 minutes when a soft, melodic singing drifted through the trees. The moment Master heard it, his face went ashen and he took an involuntary step back, fear flashing in his eyes. Before he could turn to flee, though, Flanders's firm hand closed on his shoulder and held him in place. Ever since their days back at Shrek Academy, Flanders had quietly plotted this moment, leading Master here to reunite him with his sister, Liu Erlong. In Flanders's mind, nothing in the world mattered more than seeing Liu Erlong's smile once again. "Xiaogong, it's this late," Flanders teased as he intercepted his friend at the door. "Still planning to run off? How can you leave her waiting for over 20 years? Aren't you going to meet her?" "Flanders," Xiaogong snapped, glaring, "you knew she was here all along, and you led me here on purpose." He had never imagined such betrayal from his broth, in all those years. Flanders raised his hands in mock surrender. "No, you've got it wrong. I swear I didn't know she was here. It was just coincidence. But after 2 decades apart, isn't it time you finally faced her?" A storm of emotion passed over Xiaogong's face. 20 years on the run had left him raw, and the thought of confronting his cousin Liu Erlong now felt almost unbearable. Yet Flanders, renowned throughout the Douluo world as the consummate bootlicker, laid a steady, reassuring hand on his shoulder. For all his flattery and scheming, his one sincere desire for Liu Erlong was simple, that she find happiness. They had no idea that the one who had caused his beloved sister Erlong the deepest suffering was standing right beside him, Yu Dashi. Shaken by Flanders' urging, Master finally summoned his courage and pressed onward. After several 100 meters of winding forest path, they came to an immense tree. Hung on its bark was a wooden plaque, the words neatly carved, "The Academy grounds are restricted, entry without permission prohibited." Beyond that tree, the forest gave way to open air. A small, glassy lake lay before them, its surface reflecting the pale sky. On the far shore stood a humble thatched cottage, enclosed by a low fence and ringed with flower beds. From a distance, the garden bloomed in a riot of colors. By the water's edge, a woman paused in mid-pour, watering her flowers with a simple iron kettle. She looked to be in her 30s, dressed in an unadorned green linen gown that nonetheless emphasized her graceful posture. Her raven-black hair was tied back with a matching strip of cloth. Large, bright eyes lifted toward the newcomers, as if she'd sensed their approach. For a heartbeat, everything stood still. Then she smiled gently and set the kettle aside. As soon as the woman's eyes fell on Flanders and the Master, her whole body froze. The kettle in her hand slipped and hit the floor with a resounding crash. "Xiaogang? Xiaogang, is it really you?" she cried, rushing forward and flinging herself into the Master's arms. Staring at the face she'd dreamed of night and day, she could no longer hold back her tears. The Shrek team, who had been following behind, stood in stunned silence. Though her movements had appeared simple, none had managed to register them clearly, proof, perhaps, of how formidable her strength truly was. The Master, confronted at last by the woman he had avoided for over 20 years, felt his eyes grow wet. His lips trembled, and he was rendered speechless. Flanders drew a slow breath and with a small, almost reluctant smile, addressed the Shrek 7 Devils. "This is the last pillar of our golden iron triangle, known among us as the Killing Corner. Her name is Liu Erlong." At his side, a tall woman with midnight blue hair and steel-gray eyes stepped forward. She surveyed the assembled warriors for a moment, then fixed her gaze on Flanders. "Sister Erlong," he greeted her warmly, "it's been so many years. How have you been?" "Boss Fu," Liu Erlong replied, her voice surprisingly gentle. "I've done well enough. But it's been ages, and you're still exactly the same." Flanders felt a surge of something like relief and something like regret as her eyes, once distant, focused on him with sharp intensity. He told her about the collapse at Tiandao Royal Academy, the betrayal they'd endured, the loss of their masters, and the desperate hope that had driven them ever onward. When he finished, Liu Erlong's lips curved into a decisive smile. Without hesitation, she pledged Blue Tyrant Academy to their cause and insisted it be rechristened Shrek Academy. The others watched in stunned silence. Flanders himself, known to them simply as Master, had always seemed so unassuming. Yet here stood a legend of the martial world, handing over an entire school to him. That evening, Liu Erlong hosted a feast at Lamba City's grandest inn. Over roaring hearth fires and tables piled high with roasted game and sweet rice cakes, she patiently answered every question the Seven Devils old think to ask. Afterwards, she led them through the winding corridors and manicured courtyards of Lamba Academy. Under her guidance, they claimed comfortable quarters in the faculty dormitory, each room warm, each bed neatly made, marking the first true night of their new life under the banner of Shrek Academy. That evening, after a long, hectic day, everyone finally paused for a moment's rest. The master rose from his seat and, avoiding the ardent gaze of Liu Erlong, turned to Tang San. "Xiao San, come with me for a walk." Tang San blinked in surprise. He had no idea what the master was up to, but seeing the seriousness in his expression, he rose without question and followed him out of the hall. A few hours later, under cover of night, a lone, shadowy figure slipped through Tiandao City's gates. It was Cheng Xiao, returning swiftly from the Sunset Forest. Normally, he would never have made the journey so quickly. But in the days since his soul power had surged past level 40, the ghost leopard's strength had come roaring back as well. Not only had the beast regained all its former might, it was now further empowered by the essence of shadow itself. With that added speed and stealth, Cheng Xiao had skirted the borders and arrived at Tiandao long before anyone could have suspected. Rather than head straight to the Tiandao Royal Academy, he had one person in mind, Shui Qinghe, known in some circles as Qian Renshui. Before departing on their last mission together, Zhu Douluo had told Cheng Xiao that if he ever needed guidance, he should find him in Wuhun City. Tiandao wasn't far from Wuhun, but most ordinary soul masters could never breach its walls. Cheng Xiao, however, had no trouble. His shadow-born companion ensured the city's watchmen never even saw him pass. Now, under the dim glow of lantern light, he made his way toward the academy, determined to seek out Qian Renshui and learn what clues might await him there. Cheng Xiao couldn't be bothered to handle the matter himself, so he simply turned to Qian Renshui for help. After all, she was well aware he was Master Douluo's disciple, and given the respect between them, she wouldn't refuse. Just then, a raucous voice rang out from the street below. "Heh heh, tonight's demon flame is burning strong. Perfect time for a little fun at Tiandao City's famed pleasure house." Chapter 107. Scumbag night had fallen over the streets of Tiandao City. A broad-shouldered man in crimson and a tall, blonde youth with steely eyes strolled side by side. They were Ma Hongjun and Dai Mubai, just stepping out of the boys' dormitory at Lamba College. "Boss Dai," Ma Hongjun purred with a lecherous grin. "We haven't cut loose together in ages. Tonight I want to set this place ablaze." Dai Mubai chuckled, shaking his head. "You're as impatient as ever. Tiandao City is the Empire's capital. Its women far surpass any you'll find in Soto City, the kind you never even see on stage. Just wait and watch. I'll show you how we do it." Ma Hongjun wiggled his oversized shorts and shuffled in his flip-flops. "Boss Dai, are you really giving up on Juju King?" At the mention of her name, a glint of lust sparked in Ma's eyes. Dai's expression grew cold, and he snorted. "Fatso, don't even think about her. Even if I decided to dump Juju King, which I'm not, you have no right to lay a hand on her. When I'm strong enough, I'll let her go, sooner or later," he murmured, regret heavy in his tone. "Hey, you okay? You look flushed," Dai Mubai observed, noticing Ma Hongjun's round face turning an odd shade of red. The evil fire's corrupting influence had long been suppressed, until now, it seemed, muddling Ma Hongjun's thoughts. Just then, Ning Rongrong appeared before them, her steps quick and determined. "Daihu, Fatty, have you seen Oscar?" Both men froze. Under the haze of evil fire, Ma Hongjun stared at her a moment too long, his expression oddly affectionate. Dai Mubai, by contrast, crossed his arms and huffed. "How would I know where Oscar is? Why don't you ask Tang-san? I couldn't find Tang-san anywhere, Ning Rongrong admitted, frowning. She felt a flicker of unease at Ma Hongjun's strange gaze, but pushed it aside. She had a plan: recruit Oscar. A talent of his caliber would be a tremendous asset to the Seven Treasure Glazed Tile sect, and if he slipped away to another faction, it would be a grave loss. Since you don't know, never mind. When you see Oscar, be sure to tell him, Ning Rongrong said with an exasperated wave and spun around to leave. But before she could take a step, Ma Hongjun called after her. Wait, Rongrong. I actually know where Oscar is. Come with me, I'll take you to him. Ning Rongrong froze. Dai Mubai, who had been standing beside her, tensed instantly. He and Ma Hongjun had left the boys' dormitory together, and Oscar had slipped away without either of them noticing. How could Hongjun possibly know where he'd gone? Dai Mubai's eyes flicked to the faint glow of flame hovering around Ma Hongjun's silhouette. Alarm bells rang in his head. Hongjun was lying. He was setting a trap. With the evil fire spirit still loose, Ning Rongrong was the true target. Anger flared in Dai Mubai's chest. He's never cared much for Rongrong, especially after the soul battle. He'd tried to court Juju King and been rebuffed, then returned to the academy only to become the butt of Ning Rongrong's jokes. Now she was about to walk straight into danger, and he wouldn't let it happen. As Dai Mubai's memories slowly came back to him, he couldn't help but glance at Ning Rongrong with a hint of something unspoken in his eyes. Rongrong wasn't exactly short on patience, but she did have a figure worth noticing. It might not rival Juju King's curves, yet among the Shrek Seven Devils, especially next to Dai Mubai and Ma Hongjun, she still held her own. Enough, though. This wasn't the time for idle admiration. Rongrong, are you sure about this? Ma Hongjun's voice was edged with worry as he stared at her. Ning Rongrong furrowed her brow in confusion. She was still several meters away from the two boys, and the cover of night had kept her from spotting Ma Hongjun's earlier unease. A nagging doubt made her hesitate before stepping forward. Ma Hongjun cleared his throat and fought off the mischievous gleam that threatened to return to his eyes. He straightened his shoulders and spoke more soberly. Look, we're teammates, right? Shrek Seven Devils. When I slipped out of the dorm just now, I saw Oscar heading in this direction. I thought, well, you should know. Ning Rongrong's confusion deepened into alarm, because if Oscar was here, something didn't add up. And whatever Ma Hongjun had seen might change everything. Boss Dai had slipped off to the bathroom at that moment, so he didn't know a thing. Seeing Ma Hongjun's confident smile, Ning Rongrong decided to take him at his word. All right, where is Oscar? Ma Hongjun let out a low chuckle. Follow me, I'll show you. Without another word, he turned and strode down a quiet corridor. Ning Rongrong had never noticed before. Dai Mubai watched him go, then grinned at Ning Rongrong. So you trust the big guy over me? Fine. When I find Oscar, I'll tell him you came looking, and then I'm out of it. With that, he slung an arm around Ma Hongjun's shoulders and followed him down the passage. Ning Rongrong's shoulders sagged. We're teammates. I shouldn't have doubted them so quickly. She clenched her silver teeth, then hurried after them. Unseen by her, a lone figure slipped out of the shadows and trailed silently behind. Moments later, Jing emerged into the corridor, arms crossed and brow furrowed. That's strange, she muttered. Oscar is definitely still in the academy, so why would Ma Hongjun lie to Rongrong? Ning Rongrong had made up her mind. She was going to win over Oscar. It wasn't a secret. Everyone in the dorm knew about it. That afternoon, she and Xiao Wu had been practicing spells in their room when Oscar knocked on the door. I heard you were looking for me, he'd said, flashing that irresistibly charming grin. Juju King had been there too, but she had no intention of getting involved. Still, Oscar simply turned up the charm. He fluttered his lashes, dropped into his most endearing voice, and before she knew it, Juju King found herself unable to resist his pleading. Sighing, she slipped out of the dorm, if only to escape his relentless sweetness. No sooner had she reached the courtyard than she spotted Ning Rongrong up ahead, calling out to Dai Mubai and Ma Hongjun. Not wanting to cross paths with Dai Mubai, he was brash, intimidating, and a little too protective. Juju King hung back. She figured she'd warn Ning Rongrong once the two gentlemen had moved on. Yet as she waited, curiosity and concern gnawed at her. After a moment's hesitation, she decided to follow them at a safe distance. Dai Mubai's reputation for acting on impulse and dealing with anyone who got in his way made her uneasy. If something went wrong, she had to be there to help. Ning Rongrong fell into step behind Dai Mubai and Ma Hongjun as they strode across campus. They didn't speak. The buildings grew sparse, the grounds more secluded, until at last Mubai came to a halt on a deserted stretch of path. He turned to Ma Hongjun. "Fatty," he asked, folding his arms, "are you absolutely sure Oscar is here? Why can't I see a single soul?" Ning Rongrong frowned, her gaze flicking between Ma Hongjun and Dai Mubai. She trusted her teammates implicitly and couldn't imagine they'd do her harm. She was only puzzled by their odd behavior. A predatory gleam lit up Ma Hongjun's eyes as he forced a grin. "Rongrong, they all call you a refined young lady, but I'm not seeing it." Ning Rongrong's face heated with indignation. "What are you implying?" Dai Mubai sneered at her. "You'll find out soon enough. Fatty, hold her down. I'm going to have the meat, and you can slurp the broth afterward." "Got it, Boss Dai," Ma Hongjun replied, his hands itching with excitement. He leered at her. "Rongrong, let fourth brother sample how soft your little mouth is." "You wish?" Ning Rongrong snapped, her voice sharp as a blade. Beneath her shock and betrayal, fury flared. She never would have dreamed that the teammates she trusted most could turn on her so mercilessly. First soul skill, Netherworld Stab. Juju King, who had been lurking in the darkness, could no longer hold back. She sprang forward, her figure Dassault, leaving into a ghostly afterimage as she closed in behind Ma Hongjun. Her martial spirit surged through her 10 sharpened fingertips. "Get out of the way," she hissed, only to collide with Dai Mubai's steadfast defense. The moment Dai sensed her deadly intent, 3 brilliant soul rings ignited around him. His muscles coiled like steel springs as he twisted and seized Juju King's stabbing arm, locking her fingers in an unyielding grip. Juju King's eyes flashed with fury. "Dai Mubai, I actually believed in you, but you're nothing but a selfish scumbag." And with that, she struggled against his iron hold, unwilling to concede defeat. Chapter 108. Ning Rongrong's Generosity. Scum? Juju King's crimson lips curved into a mocking smile. Dai Mubai's eyes narrowed at the insult. "I never wanted it to come to this," he sneered, "but you're far too ungrateful. Fine, today you'll learn what real scum looks like." Before Juju King could react, Dai Mubai yanked her arm, trying to pull her into his grasp. In mid-stride, she lashed out with her claws, aiming for his throat. "Looking for death?" he snarled. His tolerance snapped. Channeling his inner tiger, he slapped aside her strike with a single palm, his strength easily overwhelming hers. In one fluid motion, he twisted her arm behind her back and slammed her against the stone wall. Trapped and gasping, Juju King glared up at him. Dai Mubai's gaze burned with a fierce intensity, no mercy in sight. Yet before he could tighten his hold, a soft voice called from the corridor, "Ning Rongrong requests your presence." At the name, Dai Mubai hesitated. He released Juju King's arm, stepping back with a measured exhale. Though her shoulder stung from the impact, Juju King rubbed it and shot him a defiant glare. He only shrugged, turning toward the approaching footsteps with a look that said, "Your turn." Behind them, Ning Rongrong appeared, her gentle eyes wide in surprise at the heated scene. She raised a calming hand. "Please, everyone, there's no time for this," she said softly. "We need to move now." Her voice, like a soothing balm, diffused the tension in the corridor. Though bruised in spirit and in body, Juju King straightened her shoulders. Dai Mubai folded his arms, and together they followed Ning Rongrong into the looming darkness ahead, each of them, in their own way, grateful for her gentle intervention. Ju Qing's heart pounded in her ears as Dai Mubai's muscular arm drove her against the ancient temple wall. "If you dare lay a hand on me, I'd rather die than let you have your way," she hissed, struggling every inch of the way. But the difference in their strength was overwhelming. Dai Mubai's white tiger martial spirit, the same fearsome beast that rivaled Juzu King's blue lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex, throbbed with power beneath his skin. No matter how desperately she thrashed, she couldn't free herself from his iron grip. Ning Rongrong, alarmed, sprang forward and began the incantation for her 7 treasures Glazed Tower's amplification spirit skill. A kaleidoscope of light swirled around Juju King, bolstering her strength. But even that burst of energy failed to budge Dai Mubai's hold. If anything, his grip tightened, and his dark eyes shone with amusement. He'd always enjoyed the challenge of subduing a wildcat like Zhuju King, fierce, proud, and unwilling to yield. And after all, she was his fiancée in name, bound by the imperial engagement that would determine the Xingluo Empire's true heir. Their contract might be nothing more than a political tool, but Dai Mubai intended to honor it on his own terms. Rongrong, he called casually, glancing at Ning Rongrong's tense stance. Relax. I'm not here to hurt her. He let the white tiger spirit surge just enough to remind everyone who held the upper hand. Then, turning back to Zhuju King, he offered her a crooked smile. I just want you to admit defeat. Her green eyes blazed in defiance. Never, she spat, her voice trembling with rage and fear. He chuckled softly. We'll see how long you can hold out, he murmured, and with a single deliberate motion, he tightened his grip once more, determined to break her will before the sun had fully set on the temple courtyard. Ning Rongrong's fingers wrapped around her spirit weapon, ready to intervene. The air crackled with tension as the three martial spirits, White Tiger, Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus, and the Seven Treasures Tower, prepared to clash in a contest far more dangerous than any duel for the Xingluo throne. You scared me half to death, Ma Hongjun muttered, rubbing his sore backside as he awkwardly hauled himself to his feet. He glared first at Zhuju King, too angry to speak, but then, under Dai Mubai's watchful eye, shifted his attention to Ning Rongrong. With a visible effort, he released his martial spirit. A crimson inferno flared around his rotund frame, bathing him in an unnaturally intense heat. Rongrong, he growled, voice low and dangerous, don't resist. Tonight, Brother Four will show you a pleasure you've never known. His eyes crackled with the evil fire he'd been bottling up for weeks, ready to burst. Ning Rongrong met his gaze without flinching. Her tone was ice. Fatima, if you or Dai Mubai touch Zhu King or me today, you'll lose your heads before sunrise. Don't believe me? Try it. Her arrogant threat struck him like a bucket of cold water. In an instant, the infernal heat dimmed and Ma Hongjun's fury cooled into stunned silence. Everyone in the spirit hall knew the reputation of the Seven Treasures glazed sect, especially its two title dual-level guardian elders, whose mere presence was enough to send chills down anyone's spine. Ma Hongjun had no reason to doubt Ning Rongrong's warning. For a fleeting moment, he actually considered apologizing and making a run for it. He knew the difference between a single mistake and a disaster. Fatty, Dai Mubai snarled, if you keep falling for her lies, you'll be headless by sunrise. As Ma Hongjun hesitated, Dai Mubai swept forward, his Dao knife flashing. Zhuju King, who had been struggling desperately, went limp in his arms and collapsed, unconscious. Ma Hongjun's mouth fell open. But, he stammered, looking from the prone girl to Dai Mubai's tense blade. In that instant, a surge of sinister energy, evil fire, erupted from Ma Hongjun's dantian, flooding his mind and snuffing out all rational thought. Every other impulse vanished. Only the burning urge to unleash that dark power remained. Driven mad by desire and seized by the infernal flame within, Ma Hongjun charged at Ning Rongrong without a second's hesitation. Ning Rongrong's heart pounded as Ma Hongjun's enormous palm rocketed toward her. She stood rooted to the spot, every nerve in her body screaming for her to move, yet she couldn't. She had counted on her staunchest ally to protect her, but that hope had evaporated the moment he'd failed to stop Ma Hongjun's assault. What of the Seven Treasures glazed sect's feared retribution? Would it strike them now, before she could even react? Just as the massive hand was about to land, a piercing scream split the air behind Ma Hongjun. In an instant, a blur of black shot past Ning Rongrong and crashed into his back with a thunderous crack. Ma Hongjun emitted a blood-curdling howl, his body snapping forward like a kite with its string cut. He tumbled across the ground, skidding more than 10 meters before grinding to a halt in a heap of ragged armor and stunned silence. Ning Rongrong reeled, her pulse racing. She blinked, striving to make sense of the sudden rescue. The figure that had saved her was no person at all but a soul beast encased in sleek, jet-black armor, its inhuman form radiating both power and grace. A soft, concerned voice drifted through the aftermath of chaos. "Are you all right?" Ning Rongrong swallowed hard and turned toward the voice. A figure clad in black stood there, cradling the unconscious Zhuju King in his arms. In the dim moonlight, His eyes glowed with a faint blue luminescence, lending him an otherworldly air. "Are you Cheng Xiao of the Royal Fighting Team?" Ningrongrong's voice trembled with both relief and surprise. Cheng Xiao smiled and gently passed Zhu King into her arms. "So you recognize me," he replied, brushing a strand of hair back from Zhu King's forehead. Then he nodded toward two more figures lying at their feet, Ma Hongjun and Dai Mubai, both motionless under the Shadow Soldier's control. "What do you intend to do with them?" Anger flared in Ningrongrong's eyes as she stared at the two former comrades. "Those traitors," she hissed. "I thought I could trust them. If you hadn't shown up in time, who knows what would have happened to Zhu, Qing and me?" A mischievous grin curved her lips. "All right, Cheng Xiao, help me strip them of their clothes. They're supposedly so fond of women. Their bodies must be in tip-top shape, right?" Cheng Xiao's lips twitched in amusement as he immediately understood her plan. That night in Tiando City, Cheng Xiao gave a single imperceptible signal, and her shadow soldiers moved with uncanny speed. In a heartbeat, they stripped the two captives of their clothes, lashed them together with coarse rope, and hoisted them by the wrists onto a street lamp. At midnight, the boulevard lay deserted, but by dawn, these two would become the talk of every gossiping household. Their public shaming was irreversible. With her task complete, Cheng Xiao prepared to take her leave. Just as she turned away, a soft hand pressed something into hers. She glanced down to find a gleaming gold card, Ningrongrong's seal of gratitude. Without a backward glance, the princess of the sect of the Azure Veil swept off into the night. Cheng Xiao stood still, watching her retreating figure until it blended into the shadows. Then she lowered her gaze to the gold card in her palm, its surface catching the moonlight. A single laugh bubbled up in her throat, and with it, a sigh of disbelief. "A princess of a great sect indeed," she murmured, "magnanimous to the last." As the exhilaration faded, reality rushed back. Her skin burned with sunscald, split and aching. She'd been battling an upset stomach all day, too. Damn, she thought, rubbing her sides. She really did need to see a doctor. Chapter 109, The Dean Will Seek Justice for You. By dawn, a pale, fish-belly white glow had crept over the horizon, and Tiando City's streets were stirring to life. Market stalls were being set up, carts rattled over cobblestones, and early risers spilled out of tea houses, sipping steaming bowls of congee. Then someone in the crowd let out a startled shriek. "Oh my God! Look up there!" Heads turned. Perched limply on a street lamp, two figures hung awkwardly, side by side. As more people caught sight of them, a hush fell over the onlookers. The pair, Dai Mubai and Ma Hongjun, were completely naked, their bodies stiff from the freezing night air. Their pale, drawn faces and chattering teeth were a stark contrast to their usual confidence, and a murmur of both concern and disbelief rippled through the gathering crowd. Within minutes, news of the spectacle had spread through every alley and doorway in Tiando City. When word reached the dean of Lamba College, he flew into action. A college van appeared at the scene, and soon Dai Mubai and Ma Hongjun were whisked off to the campus infirmary. The dean issued a formal statement before reporters' cameras. Lamba College would leave no stone unturned in finding and punishing the person responsible for this outrage. Now, inside the quiet, antiseptic room of Lanba's medical center, Dai Mubai lay on a narrow hospital bed. He stared dully at the ceiling tiles, the morning light painting his drawn features in pale streaks. The proud, unshakable aura he usually carried had been shattered, replaced by a hollow ache of humiliation. As he closed his eyes, a single thought echoed in his mind. However this had happened, justice would have to be served. Oscar's footsteps sounded down the corridor before he even spoke. Dai Mubai braced himself for a scolding. What he didn't expect was the coldness in his friend's eyes. Oscar, the brother he'd always trusted, now looked at him with nothing but reproach. Dai knew at once that Ningrongrong had already spilled the details of last night's disaster. What surprised him more was that she and Zhu King hadn't tattled to Flanders and the others. Their silence had spared Dai Mubai and Ma Hongjun from immediate scandal and from being unceremoniously kicked out of the academy. Dai hugged the small mercy to his chest, though he also knew, if Flanders ever discovered the full truth, no one would show them leniency again. This one mistake would hang over them forever. "Boss Dai," Ma Hongjun groaned, sitting up unsteadily in his hospital bed. He winced as he touched his bruised jaw. Who ambushed us last night? I nearly had my face ruined. Dai Mubai stared at the floor. He could feel Ma Hongjun's resentful glare, but had nothing to offer in response. His own chest tightened with regret. If he hadn't been caught off guard, if he'd stayed alert enough to protect his friend, maybe none of this would have happened. If he'd managed to intervene sooner, he swallowed hard, willing away the guilt that gnawed at him. Outside the door, the rest of Shrek Academy carried on, unaware of how one ill-fated evening had already changed everything. Mubai closed his eyes and let out a slow breath. There was no cure for regret. He couldn't undo what had happened last night, no matter how much he wished he could. Footsteps echoed down the corridor, growing louder by the second. The infirmary door swung open, and Dean Flanders strode in, flanked by 2 attendants. His normally composed features were pinched with concern as he took in the sight before him. "Mubai, Hongjun, what on earth happened to you two?" he demanded, stepping forward. As dean, he'd taken a personal interest in both of his star pupils, and now they lay bruised and battered on the cot. Ma Hongjun sat up with a groan, clutching his ribs. "Dean," he said, wincing, "you've got to help us set things right." He turned to Mubai, then back to the dean. "You know, I've been battling that demonic flame inside me. It made me lose my mind. I did awful things without realizing it." He swallowed hard. As soon as I came to my senses, someone beat me senseless. I never saw it coming. Please, Dean, you have to avenge us." Flanders' brow furrowed deeply. He'd been aware of Hongjun's struggle with the evil fire, but pressing matters elsewhere had pulled his attention away. He never imagined that, within less than a day of Hongjun's relapse, they'd both end up in the infirmary, and in such a state. Steeling himself, he nodded, determination flashing in his eyes. "All right," he said quietly. "I'll find out who did this, and make them pay." Mubai and Hongjun exchanged a relieved look as Flanders turned on his heel and strode from the room, already making plans to avenge the wrong done to his students. That morning, Dai Mubai and Zhao Wuji had gone out onto the street at first light. If they hadn't, those 2 trapped practitioners might still be dangling from the street lamps. Flanders watched Mubai for a moment, and then said, "So you're going with Hongjun?" Dai Mubai simply nodded. He'd discovered that Ning Rongrong and the others had kept last night's events to themselves. Flanders ran a hand through his hair and sighed. "Well, I suppose this is mostly my fault." He turned to their teacher. "Master Xiao, you're our theory expert. Do you have any ideas on how to deal with Hongjun's demonic fire?" Master Xiao Gang leaned back, steepled his fingers, and rubbed his chin. After a long moment of thought, he finally spoke in his calm, deliberate tone. "If we want to stop Hongjun's evil flame for good, we must strike at its source. Should his mind ever be overwhelmed again, I propose we remove the vulnerable section of his brain entirely, cut it away so that the flame can no longer take hold. That way he'll never relapse, and his life will be safeguarded." Flanders' eyes went wide. "What? Actually remove it?" Ma Hongjun stared at the Grandmaster in astonishment. He had always thought of his master's advice as rock solid, but now the old man was recommending something utterly outrageous. His younger brother had come within a hair's breadth of death already. He'd lost almost all his vitality, and now they were talking about cutting it off. How could he survive that? "No, no, master," Ma Hongjun blurted, scrambling back. His face went pale, and he instinctively pressed a hand between his legs as if to protect himself. "You can't be serious. I may be young, but I still—" Teacher Flanders buried his face in his hands. He hadn't expected the Grandmaster to make such a drastic proposal, and he looked utterly distraught. With a deep, steadying breath, he hurried over to Ma Hongjun's bedside. "Hongjun," he said, his voice gentle but firm, "don't worry. Master isn't insisting on this. I promise you, I'll speak to him right away. You'll keep your everything." He paused, offering a reassuring smile. "In the meantime, you should rest. Let me take care of you. I'll investigate another way to cure your demonic fire and, if possible, save us a lot of trouble and expense. I know this has been weighing on you." Ma Hongjun forced a bitter laugh, though tears still glistened in his eyes. "Teacher," he said, shaking his head, "my demonic fire can be extinguished very simply. If I were with a woman, I don't need elaborate research or surgery. He shivered at the memory of the Grandmaster's suggestion. Why can't we just go that route? Just listen to your dean, Flanders said, giving Ma Hongjun a reassuring pat on the shoulder. You're not true soul masters if you leave every problem for the women to solve. He turned to Dai Mubai. Don't worry, Mubai. I'll investigate who attacked you and Hongjun, and when the time comes, I'll clear your names. Dai Mubai hesitated. Dean, really, I'd rather just drop it. The fat guy lost his temper last night, and Hongjun and I should have stopped him. We deserved what we got. Before Flanders could reply, a stern voice spoke up from behind him. The master frowned, his tone firm. That's nonsense. You're disciples of Shrek Academy. You can't go around letting people push you around, or worse, stand the vault, retaking a beating. He fixed his gaze on Flanders. And mark my words, Tang-san is my disciple at Shrek as well. If anyone dares bully him, I'll see that justice is done, even if it costs me my life. He glanced at Hongjun. Besides, she's only a woman. Even if something happened between her and Hongjun, what harm could it do? Compensating her sufficiently should settle the matter, the master declared. After all, every student at Shrek Academy is a monster, and not just any monster, but a true soul master. At the very mention of soul master, the master's eyes gleamed with pride, as if the title itself set him leagues above everyone else. Flanders felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He wanted to stand up for his students' honor, yet with Lamba Academy freshly reborn as Shrek Academy and so many new challenges on his plate, he knew this dispute would have to wait. What Flanders didn't realize was what churned behind Dai Mubai's calm exterior. Standing rigid before the master, Dai Mubai seethed silently, cursing the man's ancestors. Last night's events had made it clear to him that the young woman in question was far from ordinary. If she weren't special, neither the master nor Ma Hongjun would have acted as they did. She held power they'd underestimated. Noticing Dai Mubai's steely glare, the master misread it as fervent agreement and straightened his shoulders, brimming with confidence in his own authority. Chapter 110. The Master's Trickster. Flanders had lingered in the infirmary long enough. Now it was time to go. With Liu Erlong promoted to vice president and Flanders himself stepping into the presidency, there was no shortage of urgent matters demanding his attention. If not for today's crisis, he wouldn't even have set foot in the infirmary. Before he left, Flanders gave Ma Hongjun, a young man with a fresh head wound wrapped in gauze, a sympathetic glance. Turning to the attending master, Xiao Gang, he said, Xiao Gang, I want you to keep an eye on Hongjun for the next 2 days. Study this so-called evil fire in his body and see if there's a way to contain it without stripping him of his manhood. The kid's been through enough already. If we destroy that part of him, he may never recover. Xiao Gang waved him off, clearly eager to get back to his other duties. Understood. Consider it done. He had never encountered an affliction like this evil fire, and he wasn't convinced theory alone would cure it, but he knew better than to refuse a direct order from Flanders. Flanders offered a wry smile. You're always so quick to chase me away. He paused, then changed the subject. On a different note, how long are you going to keep avoiding her? One day, you'll have to face her. The master sighed, shoulders slumping. I know, but she's my cousin. How can I look her in the eye? How can I face the rest of the family? Flanders regarded him silently for a long moment, then shook his head with a sigh. Forget it. I won't meddle in your family matters. But since you're avoiding Erlong, you must turn your full attention to Hongjun. Your first priority is to purge that evil fire burning within him. He leaned forward, voice low and firm. And for heaven's sake, stop him from daydreaming about women every minute. If he doesn't pull himself together, he'll fritter away his life chasing some beauty and end up broken-hearted, or worse. With a final sharp look at Ma Hongjun, the perpetually fumbling apprentice, Flanders opened the door and stepped out of the ward. The instant the door clicked shut, Hongjun darted to his teacher's side, eyes wide. Master, you're the martial world's greatest theoretician. There has to be a way to save my precious inner flame. Please, you must know how to preserve it. Please don't cut off my tail. Ma Hongjun burst out, panic in his voice. Without it, all my effort will have been for nothing. Master K suppressed a chuckle, though his expression remained stern. Hongjun, how can you think like this? You're one of the most promising soul masters in our sect. Why let such a trivial attachment hold you back? Severing that tail will free you to devote yourself entirely to cultivation. Believe me, once you make that sacrifice, your path to the top will be clear. When you become the strongest fighter on this continent, countless women will be at your beck and call. Why worry about two inconsequential sweethearts now? Don't forget, true power opens every door. There will be a whole forest of admirers waiting for you. At the master's flattering words, Ma Hongjin's mind filled with visions of adoring crowds and devoted companions. Yet a single, nagging doubt cut through his daydream. If he lost his tail, what would he have left to rely on? Before he could answer, Dai Mubai, propped up in the hospital bed beside him, turned his head and let out a derisive snort. His disdainful glance said it all. This was going to get far more complicated than either of them imagined. He clenched his teeth, fighting the urge to spring up and land a few solid punches on the master. What was the use of recruiting so many disciples if every treasure vanished the moment it entered their hands? Lamba Academy's martial arts mimicry training grounds lay silent in the early morning light. After everything that happened last night, neither Ning Rongrong nor Juju King had slept a wink. Now, in the courtyard, they watched as Xiao Wu moved through her forms with relentless precision, completely unaware of the turmoil that kept her friends awake. Juju King sat curled on a great slab of blue stone, her arms wrapped tightly around her knees. She stared at the ground, lost in thought. Ning Rongrong hovered nearby, uncertain how to bridge the silence. As the Seven Treasures Glazed Sect's resident little witch, she could tease you into next week, but when it came to comforting someone, she was utterly at sea. Finally, Juju King spoke, her voice quiet. "Have you told Oscar?" Ning Rongrong swallowed hard and nodded. "I did." She sighed, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "He's far more talented than anyone else we've met. If we don't recruit him, he'll join another faction, and that could spell disaster for the Seven Treasures Glazed Sect." For a long moment, the two friends sat in companionable silence, the distant clang of training swords their only accompaniment. The decision was made. Now they only had to hope Oscar would agree to stand with them. Juju King flinched at the memory. "Last night, she whispered, her voice unsteady. She didn't want the lurid details Ning Rongrong might spill. She had only one fear. Had Dai Mubai done something to her? If he had, she almost wished she could die. Ning Rongrong, watching her friend tremble, couldn't hold back a laugh. She leaned in close and whispered, "Relax. Someone rescued us last night. That slimeball Dai Mubai didn't do a thing. He saved us." "Who?" Juju King's eyes filled with tears as panic shifted to hope. Ning Rongrong shrugged. It was too dark to see his face. After he got us out, he slipped away before I could even ask his name. Juju King's relief faltered. "But surely you caught a glimpse." "Not really," Ning Rongrong admitted with a wry grin. "Besides, back then I was only an auxiliary soulmaster. It's no surprise I couldn't identify him. Oh, and those two lowlifes who took us? This morning they're strung up from lampposts all over Tiando City, a public hang-em-high show." A tremor passed through Juju King as relief and sorrow washed over her. "They're punished at least," she breathed, tears still glistening. Juju King had no idea that Ning Rongrong not only caught a clear glimpse of the stranger's face, but also recognized exactly who he was. Ning Rongrong wasn't ready to share that secret. She didn't know how Juju King would react, and to be honest, she felt outmatched by her friend's forceful personality. "Rongrong, I need to talk to you. Alone," Juju King said softly, concern flickering in her eyes. Before Ning Rongrong could find an excuse, she heard footsteps thundering closer. Oscar hurried up to them, his expression grave. Caught between the two determined faces, she felt she had no choice but to comply. "All right," she whispered, falling in step beside Oscar as they moved away. The next morning, dawn was just breaking over Tiando City as Cheng Xiao approached the high walls of the prince's mansion. Instead of arriving late the night before, he'd taken a room at a nearby inn and waited for daylight. Now, with the first streaks of sunlight illuminating the marble columns, he presented the small bronze token in his hand, the very emblem that Senior Qian Renshui had entrusted to him at the academy. Clutched in his palm, it granted him entry to the royal palace, and with it, the chance to fulfill the purpose of his visit. After asking a few passers-by for directions, Cheng Xiao finally reached the grand avenue leading to the prince's mansion. Tall hedges framed the wide street of bluestone pavers, each stone polished until it gleamed in the morning light. At the far end stood a massive building, its pale facade crowned by the swan emblem of the Tiando royal family. Cheng Xiao paused to take it all in. He'd always thought the Tiando Royal Academy was impressive, but nothing he'd seen there prepared him for this. "So this is where the prince lives," he murmured, awe-tinged. "The academy is grand, but it's barely a shadow compared to this." Gathering himself, he stepped forward along the immaculate boulevard and made his way toward the mansion's soaring gates. Chapter 111. Qian Renchui's Dissatisfaction. "Stand aside. This is an important area of the prince's mansion. Move along." The moment Cheng Xiao reached the mansion's gate, two hulking sentries stepped forward to block his path. Shock flickered through him at their presence. The aura each guard emanated marked them as Soul Kings, rare and powerful cultivators. To assign Soul Kings as mere gatekeepers spoke volumes about Qian Renchui's influence within the Tiando royal family. Normally, Soul Kings at the Tiando Royal Academy held teaching positions, not guard duty. Drawing a steadying breath, Cheng Xiao produced the golden token Qian Renchui had entrusted to him. Its smooth surface was engraved with a single radiant character. "Snow." "One moment," he said, holding the token out between them. "Does this grant me entry?" The two Soul Kings exchanged a quick glance. The taller of the pair extended a gauntlet and examined the token under the afternoon sun. After a long moment, he nodded once. "Very well. You may pass." He stepped aside, allowing Cheng Xiao to enter the shadowed courtyard within the mansion walls. Cheng Xiao slipped inside, his heart hammering with anticipation. Beyond those gates lay the inner sanctum of the prince's mansion, the place where Qian Renchui's affairs were conducted. If he hoped to understand her recent displeasure, or to uncover the reason she'd summoned him here, he would have to learn quickly how to navigate the corridors of power she so effortlessly commanded. Prince's order. At the sight of the token in Cheng Xiao's hand, the guard started, exchanged a quick look with his comrade, then stepped aside. "Sir, please." "Thank you." Cheng Xiao offered a polite nod and, under the respectful scrutiny of the palace guards, strolled into the prince's mansion as if it were any other building. Inside, the world changed. Soft beams of golden light slanted through high windows, and the clamor of the street vanished behind heavy doors. In every corridor stood guards in gleaming armor, faces set like stone, each chest bearing the royal swan badge, the unmistakable emblem of House Tiando. Cheng Xiao felt a dozen, or perhaps 24, sharp eyes on him the moment he entered. Those overseers were all seasoned fighters, but their curious gazes hinted at surprise, even skepticism. How could a mere boy of 14 or 15 gain access to the prince's inner sanctum? Yet none dared refuse him. Anyone granted admission here answered directly to His Highness, and that was all the authority they needed. Cheng Xiao knew full well that anyone without influence wasn't welcome here. The sprawling prince's mansion had, under Qian Renji's watch, long since turned into her own private playground. He sighed inwardly. Just as he was steeling himself to find someone who might point him toward Shecheng, a crisp tap-tap of footsteps echoed through the hall. He turned toward the sound and saw a young man leaning casually in the shadows. By the look of him, he couldn't have been more than 24 or 25. His features weren't as sharply defined as Cheng Xiao's, a straight nose, a square jaw, nothing overly striking, but the combination of his clean blue robe and the neat waves of his long blonde hair, tied back with a matching sash, gave him an arresting, refreshing presence. Despite the visitor's simple attire, there was something undeniably special about his bearing. Cheng Xiao felt a flicker of embarrassment. After all, he'd gone to some length to disguise himself, seamlessly shifting between male and female forms. The young man offered a mild, knowing smile. "Hello, little brother Cheng Xiao," he greeted. Caught off guard, Cheng Xiao managed a composed nod. Who are you?" he asked, keeping his voice steady. The young man before him offered a polite, measured smile. Cheng Xiao, still trying to process the sudden introduction, blinked in confusion. After a long moment, the stranger spoke again, voice smooth and confident. "I've heard my cousin speak of you," he said. Allow me to introduce myself properly. I am Shui Qinghe, Crown Prince of the Tiando royal family. You may simply call me Brother Shui. Cousin, sister, Cheng Xiao muttered under his breath, astonished. So Qian Renshui really had invented a family tie to explain their acquaintance. Pulling off such a graceful ruse was impressive, if a little baffling. Cheng Xiao struggled to keep his expression neutral, but the slight tilt of his head must have betrayed him. Shui Qinghe's smile wavered, as though he'd expected a sterner reaction. There was something oddly familiar about the prince's manner. Cheng Xiao felt as if, beneath the courteous facade, his true identity was already laid bare. He recalled how easily everyone in Stardow Forest had been fooled by Ren Shui's claim that Shui Qinghe was her daughter. Yet here he was, a grown man and a crowned prince, standing before Cheng Xiao as if nothing were amiss. Shui Qinghe cleared his throat. "Little brother Cheng Xiao," he began, his tone courteous, but edged with curiosity. "May I ask what business you have brought you to my cousin today?" Cheng Xiao's lips curved into a self-satisfied grin. Without the slightest hesitation, he used the very honorific he knew would rankle the crown prince. "It's really nothing pressing. I simply wish to thank Sister Renshui in person for helping me enroll in school, and to ask one small favor in return." He watched Shui Qinghe carefully, noting the subtle tightening at the corners of the prince's eyes. What exactly was he thinking? And how long before the charade of cousin and sister would crumble beneath the weight of crowns and courts? As Cheng Xiao offered that bold, familiar title, Sister Renshui, he realized he was watching the first crack in a carefully built illusion, and he could hardly wait to see it widen. Cheng Xiao hesitated for a moment, then blurted the word that stopped Shui Qinghe in his tracks. "Sister?" Shui Qinghe's lips twitched, not in disgust but sheer surprise. He'd never been called sister before. A flicker of astonishment crossed his features before he forced a short laugh. "Brother Cheng Xiao, please wait here," he said, bowing slightly. "I'll fetch my cousin to keep you company. I have a matter to attend to, and I'll return shortly." "Very well, Brother Shui." Cheng Xiao offered a warm smile. Shui Qinghe inclined his head, summoned a maid with a discreet gesture, and whispered a few instructions. In the next heartbeat, he and the maid vanished from sight. Alone, Cheng Xiao sank onto an ornate bench. He barely had time to settle when a gentle, crystalline chime of footsteps sounded on the marble floor, each step perfectly pitched, like the notes of a glistening melody. A soft voice drifted on the air, and a woman emerged. She wore a simple yet exquisitely cut gown of burnished gold, its clean lines unmarred by embroidery. The stand-up collar framed her alabaster neck, drawing the eye upward to her finely cast features. Her long, golden hair cascaded freely down her back, pooling at her waist in lustrous waves. With every measured stride, her polished golden boots rang out, their clear, sweet tones echoing through the hall like the opening bars of a sonnet. Cheng Xiao rose to his feet, captivated. Before him stood Qian Renshui, beautiful, poised, and as startlingly radiant as the dawn. The sharp click of her stiletto heels echoed through the shopping mall. Well, look who decided to show up," Qian Renshui teased, her voice lilting. "Did you come all this way just to thank me in person?" Cheng Xiao lifted his chin, refusing to shrink back at her playful challenge. In this form, Qian Renshui looked every inch a graceful young woman. Delicate cheekbones, perfect porcelain skin, but he wasn't about to let appearances intimidate him. "Sister Qianshui, you're partly right," he said coolly, "but I'm not exactly a little guy." Qian Renshui laughed softly, tilting her head as if admiring a curious trinket. "Oh, come on, little guy fits you just fine." She stepped closer, studying his handsome profile. "Tell me then, have you run into something you can't handle on your own?" Cheng Xiao rubbed the back of his neck, suddenly sheepish. "Kind of," he admitted. "Actually, I was hoping you could help me reach my teacher. There are a few things I still don't understand." "Oh?" Qian Renshui raised an eyebrow. "You mean Douluo?" Surprise flickered across her face. She hadn't expected him to come to her about that. "It's about him?" Cheng Xiao nodded. "Yes." He waited, heart thumping with a mix of hope and uncertainty, as Qian Renshui considered his request. "No more?" Qian Renshui's voice trembled with reluctance as she lightly clicked her silver teeth. "It's truly gone," Cheng Xiao confirmed. Hidden in the gloom, the two titled Doulos, Snake Spear and Thorny Porpoise, watched their young master's uncharacteristic hesitation. Normally so cold and imperious, Qian Renshui now seemed oddly unsettled in Cheng Xiao's presence. "Yulong, what's gotten into her?" Thorny Porpoise whispered, puzzled. First, she was pretending to be Shui Qinghe, and now she's back to her real self, yet she treats this boy as if she's never met anyone else. Snakespeare exchanged a knowing glance with his companion before murmuring, "Didn't you notice how strange she acted on their last trip to the Xingdou Great Forest? I think something must have happened between them then." Thorny Porpoise frowned. "I noticed, yes, but so what?" "That doesn't prove anything," Snakespeare Douluo sighed, regarding Thorny Porpoise Douluo as though he'd lost his mind. "Honestly, having you as a partner has saved me a ton of trouble." Thorny Porpoise Douluo blinked, puzzled. "What are you talking about?" "Nothing. Just keep your eyes open," Snakespeare Douluo muttered, at a complete loss for words. He'd known Thorny was blunt, but not this blunt. Doesn't he realize the young master is clearly not a teenage girl? What an imbecile. Qian Renshui pressed her fingers to her forehead, unwilling to let Cheng Xiao see her disappointment. She'd waited ages for him to visit, and he'd shown up to discuss nothing but official business. Next time he dared that stunt, she'd have him tossed out of the prince's mansion herself. "I'll send the orders right away," she declared, stifling the urge to smack him. Locking eyes with Cheng Xiao, she said, "After that's done, why don't you accompany me back to the prince's mansion?" "Never mind, Sister Chanshe," Cheng Xiao said with a dismissive wave. "I've got other things to handle today. Let's go shopping another time." He wasn't turning her down on principle. He still intended to help Duguyan complete his detox. If old man Dugubo couldn't find him afterward, more trouble would follow. Qian Renshui opened her mouth, speechless. After a beat, she flicked her hand irritably. "Fine, then go. Just don't bother me with work matters." Realizing she'd sounded harsher than she meant to, she sighed and softened her voice. "I just don't want every meeting between us to be about business." Without another word, she turned on her heel and walked away. Her long golden hair swayed, and her slender figure receded down the corridor, suddenly seeming very lonely. Cheng Xiao watched her go, a thoughtful light in his eyes. A slow smile curved his lips. "I will," he murmured to himself. Chapter 112, Disagreement, leads to a clash outside Tiando City. The soaring towers of the Royal Academy stood like sentinels against the sky. Since arriving here, Dugubo had scarcely left the academy grounds. He was here with Duguyan, but his true focus lay on one urgent task, waiting for Cheng Xiao's return to purge the deadly toxins ravaging Duguyan's body. To Dugubo's amazement, as the poison's grip on Duguyan loosened, something unexpected happened to his own cultivation. After a decade trapped just below the 91st soul level, the dreaded, dimensional threshold that halts even the most gifted masters, he felt the bottleneck begin to fracture. A thrill ran through him. After 10 long years, a breakthrough finally seemed within reach. The moment Cheng Xiao stepped back onto the academy grounds, Dugubo sprang forward. His heart hammered with excitement and relief. So much depended on what came next. He had waited too long to see Duguyan freed from the toxin's bite. Leaning against the cool stone of the academy wall, Duguyan met Cheng Xiao's gaze, his voice strained but determined. "Cheng Xiao," he said through gritted teeth, "my grandfather told me you can cleanse these toxins from my body. Is it true?" Chapter 7. Dugubo had borne her illness in silence, determined not to burden their ailing grandfather. She knew all too well that their father's death had been wrought by the venom of the green phosphorus snake martial soul, an agonizing knowledge she dared not share, lest it deepen his sorrow. But today, at last, there was relief. Cheng Xiao had successfully purged the poison from grandfather's body. Dugubo offered her younger sister, Yan Yan, a gentle smile and brushed a loose curl from her forehead. "Don't worry, Yan Yan," she whispered. "Cheng Xiao has cured Grandpa. Look at him. Doesn't he look so much better?" Cheng Xiao inclined his head in acknowledgement, then turned his attention to the trembling girl before him. "Rest easy, Miss Yan. I'll remove the poison from you right now." He raised his hands and wove them through the air, forming a series of intricate seals. Then, in a voice both soft and commanding, he intoned an ancient incantation. As the words reverberated through the chamber, Yanyan's small body quivered, a faint luminescence gathering beneath her skin. Unlike her sister's long-standing affliction, the toxin in Yanyan's youthful frame had remained localized, making it far easier to expel. Wisps of primordial energy flowed into her, suffusing her marrow and cleansing her meridians with gentle, purifying waves. Gradually, the corrupt venom congealed into tendrils of dark smoke that seeped from her pores, spiraling upward until they dispersed harmlessly into the air. Moments later, the last vestige of poison had vanished. Yanyan drew a deep, steadying breath and blinked up at Cheng Xiao. Color flushed back into her cheeks, and relief flooded Douluo's heart as she slipped an arm around her sister's shoulders. Even their grandfather's ancient eyes glimmered with renewed vigor as he watched the siblings reunited, free at last from the shadow of the green phosphorus snake's curse. About half an hour later, Douluo glanced over at Yan, who had finally drifted off to sleep. He gave Cheng Xiao a curt nod, then scooped him into his arms and vanished through a concealed door. Once alone, Cheng Xiao settled onto the floor, closed his eyes, and began to restore the heavens and earth energy he had spent. Now that he had mastered all the magic spells, he no longer relied on ordinary soul power, but drew instead on the purest essence of heaven and earth. One could call that energy the very soul power of Douluo Continent, but what he absorbed now was of an even finer quality. In the blink of an eye, several days passed. Back at Spirit Douluo Academy, Cheng Xiao scarcely left the inner training halls. From dawn until dusk, he immersed himself in cultivation. His tireless dedication did not go unnoticed. The eccentric, titled Douluo Douluo watched him closely and found himself impressed. Over these days, Douluo's opinion of the young man shifted dramatically. He saw in Cheng Xiao a maturity well into his years, and a work ethic that boasted more determination than most experienced Douluo. It reminded Douluo of his younger self, when he had thrown himself into training to break through to titled Douluo and finally purge the venom of the green phosphorus snake's curse. Looking back, Douluo couldn't help but notice how much Cheng Xiao reminded him of his younger self. By nature, a loner, Douluo had cultivated a poisonous martial spirit so deadly that no other soul master dared to approach him. Yet Cheng Xiao showed no fear. Indeed, it seemed Douluo's toxins simply had no effect on him. That alone stirred an unfamiliar warmth in Douluo's heart, and before long, their relationship grew into something part mentorship, part friendship. "Hey kid," Douluo called as he entered Cheng Xiao's room. "When is this person you mentioned actually coming?" He strode over, dropped onto a chair, and set aside the rigid bearing he ordinarily wore as a titled Douluo. Cheng Xiao paused his practice, opened his eyes, and watched with a faint smile as Douluo poured himself a cup of tea. "They should be here any moment now," Cheng Xiao said, his voice light. Douluo snorted. "You've been saying that since the day before yesterday." He lifted the cup and took a measured sip, then released an odd, contemplative laugh. "The more I look at you, the more I'm convinced you're my younger self all over again." "Why don't you take me on as your disciple?" Cheng Xiao asked, tilting his head. Douluo shook his head firmly. "No." Cheng Xiao didn't miss a beat. He picked up the neatly folded clothes from the edge of the bed and slipped into them, a faint smile touching the corner of his lips. "Old man," he said, using the teasing nickname Douluo hated, "do you remember the promise you made to me?" Douluo paused mid-breath, brows furrowing in thought. Then a flash of recognition lit his eyes. "Ah, you mean when you asked me not to fight that other person? Right, it's a small favor. I gave you my word and I never break a promise. That's all I ask." Cheng Xiao's smile widened. With Douluo's agreement, there was no need for a confrontation, especially not here at the Tiando Royal Academy. Soon after they finished their morning drills, the two of them slipped out of the training grounds together. Over the past few days, Cheng Xiao had been eating his meals in Tiando City, always accompanied by Douluo. But dining openly with a titled Douluo attracted far too much attention, and Douluo despised being watched. So they devised a simple solution. They left the academy in plain clothes and kept a low profile as they made their way to a modest inn for breakfast. Blending into the crowd, they slipped inside undetected. There, seated at a corner table, they could eat in peace. Just two wandering souls, sharing a meal away from prying eyes. As soon as Douluo escorted Cheng Xiao away from Tiando Royal Academy, a soft feminine voice drifted through the air, accompanied by a potent wave of soul power. "Old poison, long time no see." On hearing those words, Douluo instinctively planted himself in front of Cheng Xiao. Under the ghostly glow of a spinning golden chrysanthemum, he glared upward and sneered. "Spirit Hall Chief Yuguan, why have you abandoned the Spirit Hall to come after me? Have you still got murder on your mind?" "Murder you?" Chrysanthemum Douluo Yuguan's laugh was cold and dismissive. "You really think so highly of yourself, old poison. If I intended to kill you, do you honestly believe I'd come all alone? My advice, stop meddling in other people's affairs and get out of my way." Douluo's eyes flashed. 9 soul rings materialized behind him, each one igniting in turn, as the fearsome form of his green phosphorus snake emperor martial soul coalesced. A massive serpent, its scales glinting faintly, reared up behind him, its amber eyes fixed on Yugen's hovering figure. "And what if I refuse to stall? Step aside." Douluo challenged, his voice as cold as steel. Yueguan's expression hardened, her own soul power flaring around her. "Old poison, don't push me," she warned. "I'm not here to fight you, but if you force my hand, I won't hesitate." Douluo threw back his head and laughed, utterly unafraid. "Haha, Chrysanthemum Pass, I'm going to have some fun at your expense today. Let's see what you can do about it." He'd long suspected that this blasted Chrysanthemum Pass had come either to kill Cheng Xiao or to drag him into the Spirit Hall. But Cheng Xiao was now more than a fellow instructor. He was his friend. Douluo would never allow anyone to take Cheng Xiao away so easily. If he couldn't defeat him outright, at least he would make sure he paid. Douluo Yuguan, Chrysanthemum Pass, snarled in fury. Was this how Douluo intended to toy with him? Did the man really think him easy prey? "You old poison monger, I told you, never call me Chrysanthemum Pass." His roar rattled the air as 9 shimmering soul rings unfurled around him, each one thrumming with the oppressive might of a level 95 soul. A swirl of golden chrysanthemum petals erupted from his rings, hardening into countless razor-sharp blades that shot straight at Douluo. "Chrysanthemum Pass, watch out!" Douluo spat, toxins coiling about him like living serpents. Though his spirit rank lagged behind, his mastery of venom made him a fearsome opponent, one he refused to underestimate. In the next instant, Cheng Xiao blurred forward, planting himself between the two combatants. A vast magic circle ignited beneath his feet, its runes blazing with power, and a luminous barrier sprang up around him. "Guardian Song!" he intoned, his voice resonating with protective enchantment as the barrier shimmered into place, ready to withstand the assault of blades and poison alike. Chapter 113, Chrysanthemum Pass, Old Poison. "Do you want to keep breathing, brat?" Douluo Yuguan's voice cut through the air like a blade. Standing before him, Cheng Xiao didn't flinch. Instead, he planted his feet firmly and met Yueguan's glare head-on. Cold sweat beaded on Yueguan's forehead as the titled Douluo summoned a storm of razor-sharp petal blades. In that instant, Cheng Xiao triggered his song of guardianship, a protective melody that shimmered into being around him. The world seemed to slow as rippling waves of pale light coalesced into a translucent shield. Yueguan's blade struck with a chorus of metal on magic. Bang! 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 Yuguan and his companion, Douluo, both recoiled in surprise. They hadn't expected Cheng Xiao to stand his ground, much less resist them. Even titled Douluo rarely met such a barrier head-on, and certainly not from a level 40 soul master. With a flick of his wrist, Yuguan forcibly recalled his petals. Douluo did the same with his own soul weapon. The few blades that failed to return in time clattered against the Guardian Song's surface, skittering off at odd angles like a sudden hailstorm of steel. Cheng Xiao remained calm behind his luminous shield, eyes narrowing as he gauged the strength of his protection and the true intent of his opponents. The Guardian Song's barrier crackled violently under the assault. Spiderweb patterns of fissures crept across its surface, growing denser by the second. For a tense 5 seconds it held firm, then, with a final, shattering crack, it collapsed entirely. Yueguan and Douluo stared in stunned silence. That barrier had withstood a titled Douluo's attack far longer than anyone expected, especially from Cheng Xiao, whose soul power barely reached level 40. How could he possibly resist a blow like that? The sight was nothing short of astonishing. Relief flooded both men the moment they saw Cheng Xiao unharmed. Dugubo exhaled slowly, then turned to Yueguan. "Juhuaguan," he said, his tone measured. "What exactly is your relationship with Cheng Xiao?" He'd heard Yueguan's sudden outburst earlier, but now, face to face, he wanted a clear answer. Yueguan's lips curved into a mocking smile as she met Dugubo's stormy glare. "Old poison, why are you so interested in my relationship with Cheng Xiao?" She let out a low laugh. "Since you're so curious, I'll indulge you. Cheng Xiao is my one and only disciple." "What, were you planning to make a move against him?" "He, your disciple?" Dugubo's eyes went wide. Shock coursed through him as he realized why Cheng Xiao's condition had seemed so odd. No wonder the young man had insisted on his guarantee. He was protecting someone far more important than himself. Yue Guan savored his stunned expression and leaned forward, voice dripping with triumph. "Surprised? Didn't see that coming, did you?" Before the tension could escalate further, Cheng Xiao stepped between them, hands raised in a conciliatory gesture. "Teacher, that's enough. Please, let's calm down." But Dugubo's keen gaze flicked from Yue Guan to Cheng Xiao and back again. He let out a bitter laugh. "So that was your plan all along," he sneered. "You orchestrated this from the start, using his request to ensnare me. Clever." Yue Guan merely arched an eyebrow, confident and unruffled. The simmering hostility in the air crackled as teacher, master, and disciple faced each other, each plotting their next move. Cheng Xiao shifted uneasily under Dugubo's scrutinizing gaze and scratched the back of his head. He wasn't sure how to explain himself. After all, the history between Dugubo and his master, Yue Guan, was hardly straightforward. "Cheng Xiao," a familiar voice called out. Yue Guan drifted down from the sky, his brow furrowed. "Since when have you been cavorting with that old poisoner?" Cheng Xiao cleared his throat. "Master, can we not talk about this right now? Dugubo and I were just about to have dinner together. Why don't we walk and talk?" Yue Guan's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. He reached out and pinched Cheng Xiao's cheeks. "Dinner with that poisonous old dog? Have you lost your mind? He's notorious for lacing every scrap of food he touches. Don't you fear he'll slip you something lethal?" He whirled to glare at Dugubo. "And you, if you dare harm my apprentice, I swear I will never forgive you." Dugubo let out an impatient sigh. His lips curled into a half-smile, sharp enough to slice steel. "Spare me the theatrics." He gripped Cheng Xiao's arm. "Come on," he said. Without another word, he turned and strode away through the courtyard, leaving Yue Guan scowling in midair. Yue Guan wasn't about to let Dugubo slip away with his apprentice without keeping watch. After all, if Dugubo had come all the way to Tianhe in Ducheng, it was by Yue Guan's invitation. So the three of them, Yue Guan, Dugubo, and young Cheng Xiao, made their way to a sumptuous hotel. Cheng Xiao, clinging to Dugubo's arm, appeared overwhelmed by emotion, her silent tears betraying how deeply she felt. To avoid drawing attention, Yue Guan had booked a private suite at his own expense. Dugubo seized the chance to empty Yue Guan's pockets, ordering nearly every luxury dish on the menu. He didn't care whether he actually ate it. After all, the money was Yue Guan's, not his own. "Old poisoner," Yue Guan muttered as yet another lavish platter arrived. "Are you even going to eat any of this? You've already cost me a small fortune." Yue Guan wasn't short on cash, but watching his sworn enemy drain his purse felt more humiliating than a duel to the death. Dugubo only laughed, his eyes dancing with mischief. "Ah, Guardian Zhu, still so miserly when your apprentice is around? You'd think you'd spare a few coins for an old ghost like me." He leaned back in his chair, savoring Yue Guan's rising irritation. The tension between them crackled in the air, but Dugubo's grin never faltered. As long as Yue Guan remained powerless to stop him, the old poisoner was having a deliciously good time. Cheng Xiao still felt a knot of unease in his stomach. After all, the man sitting across from him was one of the very people who'd hunted him to the brink of death. Ironically, that near-fatal encounter had only sharpened his curiosity and strengthened his resolve for revenge. So he ate his lunch in deliberate, measured bites while the two titled Douluo experts volleyed accusations and insults in low voices. An hour later, having finally answered their questions and eased their worst suspicions, Cheng Xiao managed to calm the pair. They both leaned back, drawing long sips from their teacups to soothe their throats. The waiter quietly cleared away the empty dishes, and a tense hush settled over the room. Douluo, the feared old poison, cleared his throat and fixed Cheng Xiao with a skeptical glare. "Kid," he said flatly, "are you really saying this blasted soul chrysanthemum can recognize my herbs and know their uses? You must be joking." Guan snorted. "Old poison, spare me. I wouldn't be caught dead using your second-rate ingredients." He then turned to Cheng Xiao with narrowed eyes. "But student, you say these flowers are extraordinary." Cheng Xiao smiled. "They really are. If you want to see for yourself, you should be thanking Mr. Douluo." "Thank him?" Guan scoffed. "Don't make me laugh. He devoted decades to the study of exotic flora. Aside from the mythical immortal herbs whispered about in legends, nothing had ever piqued his interest. Yet somehow these soul chrysanthemums had." Guan's brow creases in disbelief. The man known as Old Poison, a master of every herb in the realm, can't recognize these plants? Could Xiao Xiao really be talking about the fabled fairy herbs? Snapping back to the moment, Guan fixes Douluo with a sharp gaze. "Old Poison, are you absolutely certain you don't know any of these herbs?" Douluo's aged features darken. "Of course, I'm certain. If I recognized them, don't you think I'd already have told you? Why else would I still be sitting here, talking?" A triumphant grin breaks across Guan's face. He slaps the table and springs to his feet. "Perfect. Then take me there right now. I can't wait to see these herbs with my own eyes." Douluo snorts contemptuously. "Take you? And why on earth would I do that?" Guan leans forward, excitement dancing in his eyes. "Oh, come on, Old Poison. Xiao Xiao, speak up. Your master is about to burst with impatience." Cheng Xiao exchanges a quick, pleading look with Douluo, but before he can say a word, Douluo rises to his full height, crossing his arms. "There's only one condition left, the last of the 3 promises I made you. Fulfill that, and I'll lead you straight to the herbs." Cheng Xiao straightens his shoulders and meets Douluo's gaze. "Very well, lead the way. I always keep my word." Chapter 114, The Marvelous Chrysanthemum. The chrysanthemum Douluo is stunned. Sunset Forest, yin and yang of ice and fire. Tiando City lay just beyond the edge of Sunset Forest. 2 titled Douluo raced along its winding paths, carrying the frail Cheng Xiao between them. Though her weight had slowed their pace, by mid-afternoon they still arrived at the fabled treasure land known as the Cornucopia. Yin and yang of ice and fire. Could it really be? Cheng Xiao whispered, her voice weak but brimming with awe. Before them lay a single spring, whose waters seemed to defy nature. Half of it glowed with a chilling ice-blue shimmer, the other half roiled in fiery crimson steam. The 2 opposing currents met in perfect balance, locked in a silent dance of extremes. Such a phenomenon could only take shape over tens of millions of years, and only in the world's rarest treasure basins. No ordinary soul master would ever have witnessed it. In that moment, Guan's thoughts clicked into place. Earlier, he'd wondered why Douluo, himself no stranger to rare herbs, hadn't recognized the strange plants Cheng Xiao had described. Now he realized why. This yin and yang of ice and fire spring was one of the legendary 3 treasure basins, each condensed from the very essence of heaven and earth. Yin and yang of ice and fire? What are you talking about? Douluo asked, his brow creasing in genuine confusion as he finally stared at the wondrous spring alongside them. Guan fought to steady his racing heart, but nothing could fully quell his excitement. After all, he was finally standing before the legendary treasure land in person. "Old Poison," he said breathlessly, "I never dreamed you'd hidden something this extraordinary. From now on, consider us sworn brothers." Douluo's dark eyes flickered with contempt. "Who said I want to be your brother?" Guan forced a wry smile. "You and I both know how exposed talent like yours can be in the spirit hall. Neither of us achieved the rank of titled Douluo by slaughtering the innocent. We've paid a heavy price to reach level 90. "Level 90, Douluo repeated softly, offering no denial. He let out a low sigh. "The cost to attain this rank is more than most can endure." "Then it's settled," Guan said, his voice warm. "Brother, from this moment on." This time, Douluo didn't contradict him. He inclined his head toward Cheng Xiao, then vanished in a swirl of spirit energy. Before departing for the yin-yang eyes of ice and fire, Douluo called back over his shoulder. "Cheng Xiao, feel free to gather any herbs you need. Just be careful not to waste or damage them. Cheng Xiao and Yue Guan emerged from the mist-shrouded grotto, the warm red stones of the hot spring basin glowing faintly under their feet. Not far ahead, a single stem rose 3 feet tall, bare of leaves, but crowned by an immense blossom nearly a foot in diameter. Its soft pink petals were so translucent they seemed almost crystalline, each one catching the drifting vapor and refracting the pale light. Even from more than 10 paces away, a delicate, intoxicating fragrance drifted on the air. Yue Guan's breath caught. He recognized the flower at once, the famed fragrant fairy, celebrated in every Spirit Hall anthology as the nemesis of all poisons. While it could not detoxify itself, its essence could neutralize any venom, making it the most powerful anti-poison herb known. Until now, he had only encountered its name in ancient scrolls. To see it here, alive and thriving, was nothing short of a miracle. As a titled Douluo who cherished rare blossoms above all else, Yue Guan felt his heart swell with joy and wonder. But his astonishment only deepened when his eyes shifted to the hot spring's edge. There, standing guard like a regal sentinel, was a chrysanthemum of extraordinary size, its lush petals shimmering in a rich, royal purple that seemed to pulse with life. The flower's hues mirrored the aura of his own spirit, and for a moment Yue Guan was so enraptured he could not move. Master Cheng Xiao watched Hao, his disciple, in silence, a knowing smile on her lips. Here, amidst steam and stone, 2 legendary herbs had revealed themselves, one to conquer poison, the other to echo the very soul of the seeker who beheld it. And for Yue Guan, this hidden garden was not just a hidden trove of invaluable treasures, but a dream made manifest. Every petal of the chrysanthemum was dusted with a soft, downy fuzz, lending the flower an almost playful charm. Its bloom was flawless, and yet, surprisingly, it gave off no scent. At the center, the stamen soared more than half a foot above the petals, its tip glowing with a faint golden light. It really is the Grongtongting chrysanthemum. Yue Guan's eyes shone with excitement. For decades, he had searched tirelessly for a divine herb capable of refining his martial spirit, and this was the perfect specimen. With the chrysanthemum's power in his system, he could finally awaken the indestructible Vajra body technique. Master, Cheng Xiao said quietly from behind him, it seems you found the very herb that will strengthen your martial spirit and boost your cultivation. Yue Guan turned, his expression a mixture of surprise and admiration. You knew what it was all along? Cheng Xiao only smiled. I had my suspicions, but it was your insight that confirmed it. As the golden glow from the chrysanthemum pulsed softly in the twilight, Yue Guan felt a surge of determination. His path to invincibility had just begun. Cheng Xiao smiled. Not really. It's just that your martial spirit reminded me of this chrysanthemum, so I made the connection. Yue Guan inhaled deeply, his eyes softening as he looked at her. Xiao Xiao, you really did me a favor back there. She waved her hand dismissively. You don't owe me anything. After all, this garden belongs to Mr. Dugu as much as to you. Her eyes brightened with an idea. Since you know so much about fairy herbs, why not help Mr. Dugu find one that can strengthen his martial spirit? That's a perfect suggestion, Yue Guan agreed with a grin. Let's locate a suitable herb for the old poison master. He's already let us gather freely, but I'd still like to ask his permission first. I'm not that uncouth. With that, he began scanning the garden beds, determined to find a fairy grass that could benefit Dugu Bo. Stumbling upon the Qirong Tongqian chrysanthemum had been a stroke of luck, and now he intended to make the most of it. 3 days later, Dugu Bo descended from the sky astride his jade phosphorus snake emperor martial spirit, his granddaughter Dugu Yan close behind. Cheng Xiao, Zhuhua Guan, are you two planning to strip my medicine garden bare? He called out, scanning the area, but neither Cheng Xiao nor Zhuhua Guan was in sight. His heart thumped. Had they already harvested his prized herbs and fled? He strode toward the ice and fire spring, only to find it more orderly than ever. Aside from a few odd plants he didn't recognize having vanished, every other herb was perfectly tended, and not a single weed marred the spring's edge. Whoever had been here must have taken great care, undoubtedly Zhuhua Guan's handiwork. Grandpa, Yan Yan said, frowning, you told me Ju Douluo from Wuhun Palace is Cheng Xiao's master. Would he really betray us? Dugu Bo managed a thin smile. I'm sure there's an explanation. Before he could say more, a tremendous wave of soul energy rippled through the air. His eyes snapped toward the source as a powerful fluctuation pulsed nearby, sending a thrill of anticipation through him. As they soared toward the clearing, Duguyan spotted two figures beneath the sprawling old tree, Cheng Xiao and Yueguan, both seated in perfect stillness. "It really is a titled Douluo," Duguyan whispered, awe brightening her eyes. She'd heard the rumors, but seeing Douluo Yueguan in person and feeling the power radiating from her left no room for doubt. Her strength truly eclipsed even that of Duguyan's own grandfather. Dugubo had intentionally kept last year's vengeance hidden from his granddaughter's ears. Some truths, he believed, only bred sorrow and strife. Better to let them lie undisturbed. Yet a restless worry gnawed at him now. What if today's revelations shattered the fragile peace they'd fought so hard to protect? Silently, he braced himself, uncertain which was more dangerous, the secrets still buried, or the truths finally brought to light. Chapter 115, Self-Created Power, Shadow Palace. Dugubo and his sister, Duguyan, descended from the jade phosphorus snake emperor spirit and landed lightly right in front of where Cheng Xiao and Yueguan sat cross-legged. Yueguan, who had been meditating with his eyes closed, quietly opened them. Dugubo glanced over with interest. "Yueguan," he called, "what were you and this kid up to just now? Have you found the celestial herb you needed?" Before Dugubo could finish speaking, Yueguan sprang to his feet. In one swift motion he crossed the short distance, grabbed Dugubo by the shoulders, and shook him with such force that Dugubo's head spun. "Old poison," Yueguan exclaimed, his eyes shining. "You've really done me a great favor this time." Dugubo staggered back, wrenching free. He glared at Yueguan in confusion. "Hold on, Chrysanthemum, what are you talking about? When have I ever given you any favor? Don't go spouting nonsense." "I'm serious," Yueguan insisted, voice trembling with excitement. "This chance you've handed me, it's bigger than anything I could have dreamed of. Come with me, and I'll explain everything." With that, Yueguan gently took Dugubo's arm and led him off toward the eye spring of the Binghuoliangyi, leaving Duguyan standing frozen in place. He stared after his grandfather in bewilderment, wondering when Yueguan and Dugubo had become so close. There was nothing he could do, though. Taking a deep breath, Duguyan crouched beside Cheng Xiao, who still sat with his eyes closed. He laughed softly and whispered, "Everyone else has gone. Why don't you open your eyes?" Cheng Xiao blinked and lifted a finger to his lips in a gentle shh gesture. He watched Yueguan and Dugubo recede into the distance, then patted his robe. Rising to his feet, he smiled. "I didn't expect Sister Yanzi to show up too. Your timing is perfect. I was just about to call for you." "Call me?" Duguyan asked, tilting his head in confusion. Cheng Xiao's lips curved in a knowing grin. "You'll find out soon enough." With that, he beckoned for Duguyan to follow. A moment later, hearty laughter rang out as Dugubo strode toward Cheng Xiao and Duguyan, a fist-sized golden tuber cradled in his hand. Duguyan's eyes widened. "Grandpa, what's that? It looks just like a potato." Dugubo grinned. "Yan, don't let its humble shape fool you. This is called the sweet potato golden dragon, a rare spirit herb. If you consume it, there's a very high chance your jade phosphorus snake martial soul will be forcibly evolved. For a jade phosphorus snake soul master like you, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." "Really, Grandpa? You're not joking?" Duguyan stared at the golden tuber in disbelief. "Eating this potato thing will evolve my martial soul?" "Not at all," came Yueguan's elegant voice as she stepped forward, excitement shining in her eyes. "This is a priceless fairy herb. It only brings benefits, no risks." Trusting her grandfather and Yueguan, Duguyan took a small breath and reached out to accept the sweet potato golden dragon, her heart pounding with anticipation. It wasn't that Duguyan doubted the claim. Enhancing one's martial spirit simply by consuming a peculiar herb sounded too fantastic to be true. Yet when Yueguan carefully explained how to swallow the so-called fairy grass, she accepted it without hesitation. Cradling the tiny root in her palm, she sat cross-legged and slipped into a deep meditation, channeling her chi to draw out the herb's hidden power. Throughout her cultivation, Duguyan had never broken past the level 40 bottleneck. Today, however, she stood on the brink of something extraordinary. Not only might she witness her martial soul's evolution, but she could also shatter that barrier and become the second member of the Imperial fighter team to attain the rank of Soul Master. As her aura began to flicker with newfound energy, Douluo quietly positioned himself at her side, ready to defend her against any unforeseen backlash. No sooner had Douluo absorbed the fairy essence than Yuguan's own excitement erupted. From within his robes, he drew out his most prized treasure, Qi Rong Tianju, the velvet Babel chrysanthemum. Rumored to fortify the body to an almost indestructible state and even open the path to the legendary realm, the velvety blossom was the last piece he needed for his breakthrough. Heart-pounding, Yuguan crushed the chrysanthemum and swallowed it in one swift motion. Under Douluo's vigilant gaze, he too closed his eyes and began drawing the chrysanthemum's potent qi into his core. Together, the three cultivators delved into meditation, each poised on the cusp of a life-changing transformation. Douluo relaxed. He wasn't worried Cheng Xiao would use this moment to strike. After all, former enemies didn't have to remain foes forever. Through the swirling energies of his ice-fire duality martial spirit, he regarded Cheng Xiao with a skeptical gaze. Having fully absorbed Douluo's power, Douluo had mastered the sound-fortifying strings, a technique reserved for only the highest-ranked soul masters. His voice dropped almost to a whisper as he asked, "Kid, why didn't you take any of the fairy grass just now?" Cheng Xiao shook his head, replying softly but firmly, "The fairy grass wouldn't help me. My martial spirit is already top tier. I don't need to enhance it further." A slow, knowing smile curved Douluo's lips. He studied Cheng Xiao from head to toe, eyes gleaming with unspoken understanding. "Still," he said, "your son had Yuguan collect some fairy grass, and you even picked some up for Yan Yan yourself. Care to explain that? Are you planning to form your own force and recruit all the elders from Wuhun Palace?" Douluo asked, one eyebrow quirked in amusement. Cheng Xiao scratched at his nose, stole a glance at Yuguan, then leaned in to whisper, "Actually, that's the idea. How about you join me?" Douluo waved a dismissive hand, though his smile was anything but. "I'd be honored to ride with you, but I'm a titled Douluo. Surely you can assign me a position worthy of my rank?" Cheng Xiao rubbed his throbbing forehead in mock exasperation. "Old man, you drive a hard bargain. Fine, titled Douluo it is. I'll think of something suitably grand." A chuckle escaped Douluo. "That's more like it. You can't expect your horse to run if you won't even let it graze." Cheng Xiao nodded and tapped his fingers together. "Oh, and if I'm starting a whole new faction, it needs a name. What should we call it?" He let a confident gleam flicker through his gaze. In a low, determined tone, he declared, "I've already decided. Soon my shadow soul beasts will multiply endlessly. When that day comes, neither the three great sects nor the Spirit Hall will be able to stop us from soaring." Cheng Xiao stood before Douluo and announced with quiet conviction, "Our faction's name will be Shadow Hall." "Shadow Hall?" Douluo frowned. "Spirit Hall? Are you sure?" He glanced at Cheng Xiao, bewildered. "How did you come up with a name like that?" Cheng Xiao drew a steady breath and snapped his fingers. In an instant, shadows poured forth from the yin-yang eye of ice and fire, countless tendrils of smoky darkness twisting through the air. The very atmosphere seemed to shiver under their presence, and Douluo's eyes widened. "Little brother," Douluo breathed, "can these shadow soul beasts grow stronger with you?" Cheng Xiao's lips curved into a small smile. "Yes, as my soul power rises, so will theirs. By the time I break level 90, I expect these shadows to rival, even surpass, a soul Douluo." Douluo staggered back, speechless for a moment. He could hardly imagine the force Cheng Xiao would wield then. You truly are a monster," he finally managed, awe and apprehension mixing in his tone. "At that level, Wuhun Hall, and even the three upper sects, will have no choice but to surrender." Cheng Xiao's expression remained calm. He knew it wasn't he who was the monster, but the ancient entity hidden deep within him, the true Shadow King. Unlike the necromancer's mindless thralls, the Shaktas, a Dao soldier's intelligence grew with their master's level. This scaling wisdom made them far more formidable than ordinary summoned creatures. Chapter 116. Don't Lose the Spirit of All in Night had fallen by the time the effects of the fairy herbs began to stir within Yuguan and Douluo. A gentle breeze rose around them, carrying the faint scent of the Qirongtong Tianju pill they had ingested. Yuguan, seated in lotus position, was the first to change. A slender veil of golden light shimmered across his skin, mirroring the hue of his martial soul, Qirong Tong Tianju. His 9 soul rings flared one after another in rapid succession, each ring blazing brighter than the last. Occasionally, he let out a low, thunderous growl, his entire body vibrating in sync with an unseen rhythm of power surging through him. Beside him, Dugu Yan sat perfectly still, her face serene as she absorbed the herb's energy. Gradually, a soft luminescence formed around her, subtle at first, then intensifying into a steady glow. Though her expression never changed, her aura spoke volumes of the transformation unfolding within. Cheng Xiao and Dugu Bo had been watching the two with growing impatience. They lounged nearby, exchanging bored glances as the minutes stretched into an hour. Then, just as Dugu Bo was about to speak, Dugu Yan's eyelids fluttered open. A spark of excitement ignited in her eyes. "Grandpa, it worked!" she exclaimed, leaping to her feet. Her voice rang with triumph as the light around her pulsed in joyful harmony. Dugu Bo's stern face broke into a proud smile, and even Cheng Xiao couldn't suppress a triumphant nod. In that moment, all their patience and every gamble they'd taken felt entirely justified. Yanyan's eyes widened in disbelief and delight as a broad smile lit up her face. "My Jade Phosphorus Snake martial soul, it's evolved into the Jade Phosphorus Snake Emperor." She whirled to her grandfather, nearly trembling with excitement. "Grandpa, it really happened." With that, she threw her arms around Dugu Bo's neck. He'd told her that when his own martial soul evolved, it had propelled him all the way to titled Douluo rank, and here was his granddaughter, a mere disciple of the Kaihun sect, already achieving her first evolution. Pride and joy filled his heart. "Ha ha ha, it seems the old man at Juhuaguan spoke the truth," Dugu Bo laughed, his eyes misting. He gently patted Yanyan's head. "Yanyan, Grandpa couldn't be happier for you." After a moment of exhilaration, Yanyan took a steadying breath and turned to Cheng Xiao, her smile softening with gratitude. "Cheng Xiao, thank you for believing in me, and for everything." Cheng Xiao returned her smile. "Sister Yanzi, you earned this. No need to thank me." "You're right, Yanyan. There's no need to thank this old man," Dugu Bo said with a booming laugh. "Honestly, I have no clue what those herbs actually do, but without them, Juhuaguan wouldn't have pulled it off, even if he'd known the method." He shifted his gaze to Dugu Yan. "By the way, has your spirit power risen? When a martial soul evolves, your spirit power should surge, right?" Dugu Yan paused, concentrating on the energy swirling in her dantian. After a moment, she nodded slowly. "It's jumped by at least 5 levels, but I won't know exactly where I stand until I absorb my 4th spirit ring." "Perfect," Dugu Bo clapped his hands with childlike excitement. "Then let's go secure that 4th ring right away. It'll be the ideal test for your newly evolved martial soul." Before his words had even died away, a silvery feminine voice carried on the breeze, and instantly a tremendous aura erupted around them. At its center stood none other than Spirit Douluo Yueguan, her figure suffused with the peculiar energy of the velveteen sky-reaching chrysanthemum she'd absorbed. After a long, luxurious stretch, Yueguan's eyes finally fluttered open, a triumphant smile playing on his lips. "At last! My body is truly invincible," he murmured, savoring the sensation. In the next instant, 9 soul rings materialized at his ankles, orbiting him like miniature moons. A golden radiance pulsed from his core, bathing the room in warm light. Dugu Bo, standing nearby, felt the surge of pure spirit power. Yueguan had just broken through to the 96th level. He wouldn't have to lean solely on his Ghost Douluo techniques any longer. "Level 96, Yueguan whispered, eyes closing as he drank in the joy of victory. He'd been trapped at 95 for over a decade. Countless attempts, countless setbacks. Now at last, he'd shattered the bottleneck. Unable to contain his excitement, he sprang to his feet and bounded over to Dugu Bo, right in front of Dugu Yan and Cheng Xiao. Before anyone could react, Yueguan threw his arms around Dugu Bo in a fierce hug. Dugu Bo's face darkened. Something in Yueguan's aura, an unexpected, lightly floral fragrance, made him feel oddly queasy. Still, after so many years of friendship and shared hardships, a bit of theatricality was nothing they couldn't handle. With barely a word, Dugu Bo patted Yueguan's back, acknowledging the breakthrough. For Yueguan, though, this moment was all the congratulation he needed. He pulled back, his grin wider than ever. "Thank you," he whispered, not so quietly. Then turning to Duguyan and Cheng Xiao, he threw them a confident thumbs up. His journey to true strength had only just begun. Dugubo squirmed until he broke free of Yueguan's embrace. Ahem, Yueguan, that's enough. Let go of me. His face was ice cold. He clearly couldn't stand being hugged anymore. Yueguan laughed, finally releasing him. He stepped back with a bright smile. I'm just too excited, and thank you, old poisoner, for the fairy herbs. I owe you big time. Dugubo brushed past him, nostrils flaring. Save your thanks. I don't want to see you gulp down my herbs, blast through the soul power realm, and then come back pestering me. Yueguan waved a hand dismissively. Relax. No one else knows who I really am, not even you, old poisoner. Dugubo shot him a sidelong look. How would I know? Despite the gruff words, the frost in his gaze had thawed. Sensing the tension dissolve between them, Cheng Xiao seized the moment to press her own proposal. Xiao Xiao, you're insane! Yueguan blurted out as Cheng Xiao began to explain. His eyes widened with shock as he listened. Do you realize how powerful Wuhun Palace is now? Even their consecrators in the hall are all titled warriors, level 95 and above. And Lord Luo, the Grand Priest, is a peerless level 99 Douluo. They'd crush us without breaking a sweat. Xiao Xiao, you can't just replace Wuhun Palace on a whim. Yueguan's tone was measured but firm. Remember, every elder in the Elders' Hall answers to the Pope now. Besides Elder Ghost and me, there are only 3 titled Douluo left, Ghost Leopard, Demon Bear, and Lingyuan. He paused to let the names sink in. Ghost Leopard and Demon Bear are both solidly at Spirit King 95. Only Elder Lingyuan and the leader of the Holy Dragon sect, who's about to claim a title, haven't reached that mark yet. Do you really intend to strike out on your own, to set up a force that challenges the entire Spirit Hall? Yueguan's warning wasn't misplaced. As an elder, he'd witnessed every shift in power since Bibi Dong seized control of the hall. Before, he had been too weak to resist her will. But everything changed the moment he absorbed the Qirong Tongqian pillar. He'd shattered the 95th level barrier and felt invincible for the first time. More than that, he sensed that with a little more time, he could break through to the 96th level, and perhaps even the 97th. He looked at Xiao Xiao, eyes steady. If you're serious about this, you must understand the odds are heavily stacked against any force that opposes the hall's might. You'll be walking into a war zone, not a negotiation. Are you prepared for that? Yueguan sat back, eyes distant. By the time he reaches his full potential, even Bibi Dong won't be able to treat him like a mere pawn. His earlier compliance was born of weakness, no strength, no standing. But each new victory fans the spark of rebellion in his heart. No one is born a slave, nor do they choose bondage. Harsh circumstances force the choice for them. Cheng Xiao offered a small, confident smile. Master, I understand your caution, but might there be a way to dismantle the Spirit Hall's power from within, or even to undermine the Pope's authority? At the mention of the Pope, Yueguan stiffened, pupils contracting in surprise. He fixed Cheng Xiao with a searching look. Xiao Xiao, you're suggesting an alliance with Qian Renshui in the Worship Hall to orchestrate a complete reshuffle of the Spirit Hall's leadership? Cheng Xiao considered this for a moment. Perhaps. I can't be sure where her loyalties lie yet, but with her involvement, the Worship Hall itself should pose no obstacle. Yueguan drew in a sharp breath, shock and sudden understanding flooding his expression. Of course, that explained why Qian Renshui had accompanied Cheng Xiao through the Star Do Great Forest. It turned out they'd been working together for a long time. No wonder Cheng Xiao had proposed creating a new force. It was all Qian Renshui's idea. Now, at this critical moment, Elder Yueguan resolved to shake off Bibi Dong's control. As one of the Spirit Hall's oldest members, he knew just how ruthless she could be. Her iron-fisted methods made even the legendary Pope look merciful by comparison. Yet Yueguan was ready to take the risk. The Spirit Hall he once believed in had rotted from top to bottom. Corruption and decay tainted every tier of the hierarchy. Except for a handful of low-level functionaries, the leadership was in shambles. Steeling himself, Yueguan finally knew what he wanted. He had tasted power and wealth, and now craved only one thing, true freedom, unbound by anyone's will. Xiao Xiao, he murmured, I've served the Spirit Hall for decades and witnessed both the warmth and cruelty of human hearts. Thanks to you, I have one last chance to set things right. If it comes down to it, I'll stand by your side. Let's go all the way together. Chapter 117, Tiando Auction House. At dawn's first light, Spirit Elder Chrysanthemum Douluo Guan took his leave. As one of Spirit Hall's revered elders, he couldn't afford to linger. After offering polite farewells to Cheng Xiao, Douluo and the rest, he ascended on his spirit beast, the resplendent Qirong Tongtian Chrysanthemum, and vanished into the sky. With Yoguan gone, Duguyan turned to Cheng Xiao, who had just finished his morning cultivation. Cheng Xiao, how would you like to visit the Tiando auction house? I've heard they're showcasing some exceptionally rare items right now. Cheng Xiao paused, surprised. The Tiando auction house? In his experience, auction houses catered to the continent's wealthiest collectors. Was he? No, surely he wasn't rich enough to browse there without an invitation. Dugubo offered a knowing smile. I've roamed this land for years. Even if we have no coin to our names, they won't dare throw us out. Come on, you might find something interesting. Cheng Xiao returned a courteous but confident smile. He inhaled deeply, feeling a spark of excitement. All right, let's go see it for ourselves. With that, Dugubo hoisted Duguyan over one shoulder and Cheng Xiao over the other. In a single graceful motion, they shot into the air, heading straight toward the legendary yin-yang Eye of Ice and Fire and the bustling Tiando auction house that lay beyond. Dugubo reached the rank of titled Douluo long ago, so he could fly on his own and at a respectable pace. Escorting Cheng Xiao and the others slowed him down a bit, but had he been alone, he'd have covered this distance even faster. Though the Sunset Forest teems with mighty soul beasts, none dared challenge him. His presence here over the years has become well known among the local creatures. Thanks to that reputation, they passed through unmolested and soon dropped down at the edge of Tiando City. They stood for a moment on the bustling street, gazing toward the city's great auction hall. Cheng Xiao squinted up at the massive structure, roughly 500 meters across and soaring more than 80 meters into the sky. It wasn't quite as vast as Tiando's Dohun Arena, but as an auction house, it didn't need seating for thousands of spectators. At its main gate, a dozen or so men in crisp yellow uniforms stood guard, their expressions blank and weapons neatly sheathed at their waists. Cheng Xiao felt a flicker of anticipation. This was where they'd find the relics they'd come seeking, and where the real test of their journey would begin. Their eagle-sharp eyes swept over the bustling crowd, ensuring no one could slip through unnoticed. From the faint auras these guards projected, they were clearly soul masters at the soul ancestor tier, a testament to the Tiando auction house's reputation for power and prestige. Yanyan, Cheng Xiao, let's go inside and take a look, Dugubo said, nodding to the two as he strode toward the entrance. Yanyan and Cheng Xiao fell in beside him. But before they could step through the grand doors, a pair of guards barred their way. Identification and proof of funds, please, one of them demanded, his gaze unyielding. Through further questioning, the three discovered the reason. Any lot valued above 1,000 gold soul ratios required prospective bidders not only to prove their identity, but also to demonstrate sufficient financial backing. Only then would they be permitted past the threshold of the Tiando auction house. Are you telling me a titled Douluo can't enter? Dugubo's eyes narrowed to slits as he glared at the gate guard. The guard stumbled over his words, then quickly dipped into a bow. My lord, my apologies. I did not realize. Of course, please enter. A maid standing nearby stepped forward at once. She curtsied to Dugubo and his two companions before gesturing them inside. She had overheard the guard's earlier hesitation and found herself both surprised and intrigued that someone of titled Douluo's caliber had chosen to attend today's auction. Once they passed through, the massive double doors, the maid adopted a professional smile. Honored guests, she said, giving each of them a courteous nod. Is this your first time at the auction house? Duguyan glanced at her with a knowing look. Yes. May I ask if there's any protocol we should be aware of? Nothing at all, the maid assured her. Then she shot Cheng Xiao a playful, nearly imperceptible wink. Her slender waist curved like a water snake as she led them deeper into the hall. They followed her for a few dozen meters, the cavernous auction chamber stretching out before them, rows of gilded display tables, lantern-lit aisles, and eager bidders in fine attire. Finally, the maid paused before a side passage at the far end of the hall. "Please allow me to show you to your reserved seats," she said, stepping aside so they could continue on their own if they wished. Douluo inclined his head curtly. "Lead the way." As the trio moved onward, the maid slipped away into the crowd, her faint smile lingering as she vanished among the other attendants. Ahead of them lay the heart of the auction, gleaming relics and priceless artifacts waiting to be claimed by the highest bidder. Douluo, Yan, and Cheng Xiao exchanged determined glances. Here, in this grand hall, power and prestige would be bought and sold, and they intended to come out on top. The corridor was vast, its floor laid with a deep red carpet. Dozens of black-clad guards stood motionless along its edges, their faces carefully impassive. As Cheng Xiao and her companions entered, a group of dignitaries advanced down the carpet. The guards barely glanced at the newcomers before their eyes settled on a middle-aged man at the center of the procession. He appeared to be in his 40s or early 50s, with flawless, pale skin, a straight, aristocratic nose, and a firm, square jaw. His features were refined and composed, and he wore an immaculate white robe, his dark hair bound neatly at the back of his head. Just behind him walked an elderly figure with snow-white hair that drifted gently as he moved. He, too, wore resplendent white robes, and his long silver locks cascaded down his back in precise order. There was something both simple and majestic about him, his face so smooth it seemed almost ageless. His gaze was coolly detached, as though he observed the world from some lofty distance, giving the impression that he stood completely apart. Despite the old man's impassive expression, Cheng Xiao felt a far more intense pressure emanating from him than she had from Douluo. Cheng Xiao realized at once that this man far outmatched Douluo. Douluo smiled and leaned in close. "You spotted him too, didn't you? That middle-aged fellow in white is Ning Fengji, the leader of the Seven Treasures Glazed Tile sect and the world's foremost auxiliary weapon soul saint. And the elder at his side is Jiandao Chenxin, one of the sect's two great protectors." Cheng Xiao nodded thoughtfully. Rumor held that Chenxin had devoted his entire life to mastering the seven-killing sword martial spirit. In raw offensive power, few on the continent could hope to rival him. No wonder he'd sensed that haughty, unapproachable aura. Just then, as Chenxin prepared to step into the auction hall, he suddenly paused. Tilting his head, he cast a cold, expressionless glance toward Douluo's little group. His icy gaze lingered on Douluo for a split second before he resumed his silent stride into the crowd. Douluo's appearance here was bound to raise eyebrows. Douluo Chenxin paused at the entrance, his brow knitting in suspicion. After a brief hesitation, he leaned close to Ning Fengji, murmured a few words, and then strode into the arena with unwavering scrutiny fixed on Douluo. Douluo forced a wry smile. "So, you've spotted me," he said softly, though Chenxin's frigid gaze felt like a blade against his chest. Beside him, Cheng Xiao gave his shoulder a reassuring pat. "Don't worry," she said with a warm smile. "You're a titled Douluo. Just stay on your guard and don't let them catch you off balance." Chapter 118, A World Where the Strong Prey on the Weak. Just as they reached the doors of the Tiando auction house, the manager hurried out to meet them. Spotting a titled Douluo, he bowed deeply and pressed a heavy, gold-plated card into Douluo's hand. "Your Majesty Douluo, please accept our VIP pass for the Tiando auction house." Douluo took the card without ceremony. "Thank you. Which box has been assigned to us?" The manager offered a gracious smile. "Your seat number is stamped right here. The auction runs non-stop for 24 hours. Just follow the corridor to your box at any time." Douluo tucked the VIP pass into his robes and led the way inside. They strolled down an elegantly lit hallway, turned a corner, and suddenly the main hall burst into view. It was cavernous, far larger than Cheng Xiao had ever imagined. Rows of private viewing boxes soared along the walls, each one reserved for the realm's wealthiest and most powerful. Cheng Xiao, himself a second-generation Douluo, stopped and stared in awe. He'd never set foot in a place like this before. Its grandeur was almost unreal. Now he understood why ordinary people were strictly forbidden entry. This was a world built by the strong, for the strong. Even someone with deep pockets would be dazzled by this place's luxury. Seats packed so tightly you'd think they were vying for elbow room, and soaring crystal towers that caught and refracted the light like gemstones. Every surface spoke of extravagance. "Sir, may I have your seat number?" a young maid asked, approaching with measured grace. Douluo lifted his newly issued VIP card and handed it over. The maid's eyes widened when she saw its color. Instantly, her deference deepened, a subtle bow, her voice soft and courteous. "Please follow me. There are 3 seats reserved for your party." She produced 3 delicate masks and distributed them. For the auction, all guests must remain anonymous. This also ensures everyone's safety. Douluo paused, tempted to reveal his status as a titled Douluo, but decided discretion was wiser. He slipped the mask on without a word. His granddaughter and Cheng Xiao slipped theirs on as well. With that settled, the maid led the way down a glittering corridor. Cheng Xiao and company fell in step behind her, eyes alive with curiosity as the grand auction hall lay just beyond. I followed the maid through the cavernous auction hall for 10 minutes before we finally stopped near the crystal-lit stage. "Here are your seats," she said, indicating 3 plush chairs beside the auction table. She offered Cheng Xiao and Douluo a polite smile, bowed, and then slipped away. "Finally, my legs are killing me." Douluo sighed in relief as she settled into the velvet-upholstered chair. The cushion was so inviting she felt tempted to melt right into it. Cheng Xiao and Douluo sat down beside her with equal courtesy. Almost immediately, Cheng Xiao sensed a sharp gaze on his back. He turned to look and saw the sword Douluo of the 7 Treasures glazed sect, whom he'd encountered at the entrance, watching him from a nearby row. A faint, knowing smile curved the man's lips. Cheng Xiao gave him a casual wave before turning back to chat with Douluo. The sword Douluo's smile faded into a scowl. "That brat," he muttered, then abruptly looked away. Ning Fengji, leader of the 7 Treasures glazed sect, leaned close and murmured, "Uncle Jian, is there something wrong? You looked distracted just now. Did someone speak to you?" Sword Douluo Chenqin shook his head, voice steady. "No, it's nothing they said. It's this young man here. There's something off about him." "Off?" Ning Fengji raised an eyebrow. "He's clearly not very powerful himself," Chenqin explained, "yet the fellow standing at his side, Douluo, isn't someone you encounter every day. And despite the youth's unremarkable aura, I can't shake the feeling that he's far more than he seems." A flicker of excitement passed through Ning Fengji's eyes. "Is that so? Uncle John, I'll gladly watch him. My own senses aren't as keen as yours. I'd miss any hidden potential he might have." "I understand," Chenqin replied with a nod. Years of perfecting his swordsmanship had honed his instincts to a razor's edge. Though this was his first meeting with the young man, his intuition screamed that there was something extraordinary about him. Even more intriguing was the sight of a formidable figure like Douluo willingly standing in the youth's shadow, and doing so with obvious deference. That alone was more than enough to grab Chenqin's full attention. In the world of soul masters, everyone knows that Douluo is as eccentric as they come. Few dare to approach him, and even fewer can truly call him a friend. The young man standing before him, however, clearly wasn't one of those few. Ning Fengji's lips curved into a sly smile as he watched the pair. "Once the auction ends, I'll pay them a visit," he murmured to himself. "And perhaps I can see for myself just how close this fellow really is to Douluo." His gaze lingered on the delicate girl at Douluo's side, his granddaughter, Douluo. Curiosity danced in Ning Fengji's eyes. After all, he too had a daughter to consider. Just before the bidding began, faint, unsettling sounds drifted through the grand hall. Cheng Xiao and Douluo both stiffened, exchanging troubled glances. Nearby bidders were openly toying with one of the auction house's own maids, and the low moans and gasps made everything unmistakably clear. Douluo's cheeks flushed, and she turned to her grandfather. "Grandpa, what are they doing? How can they behave like this in public?" Douluo nodded thoughtfully, his expression calm. "Yan, you must remember that not everyone here commands great power. These maids belong to the auction house. They're assets, just like any other. Their bodies, their lives, everything is up for sale. It's cruel, but it's the world we live in." He glanced toward the dais, where the auctioneer was stepping up to begin. "Enough talk," Douluo added. "The real show is about to start." With that, the 2 generations of Douluo blood took their seats, ready to witness the bidding, and to see what revelations the evening might bring. Cheng Xiao paused in her pacing and spoke quietly. There's something else you should know. These girls weren't born into service. They were bought as children by the auction house and trained from the start. They're both staff and stock. If someone places the highest bid, they can be sold off at any moment. Du Guyan's eyes flashed with anger. Why is it like this? I thought an auction house was meant to be exciting, some grand showcase of rare treasures. I never imagined it would turn out so despicable. Cheng Xiao's expression grew somber. This world has always been one where the strong prey on the weak. If you want to carve out any kind of future, you must be strong yourself. Du Gubo nodded approvingly. She's right. True strength is the only foundation worth having. These maids, he said, indicating the silent young women hovering nearby, are ordinary people who haven't awakened their soul powers. Even though the Wuhun Palace has performed the awakening ritual for them, without a personal reserve of soul power they remain, at best, commoners. Cheng Xiao watched as one of the maids refilled a porcelain cup with trembling hands. Look at how hollow their eyes are, how their faces betray no spark of life. They've lost the very essence of themselves. They don't choose their own path anymore. They can't. Du Guyan clenched his fists. It's heartbreaking, he whispered. Cheng Xiao placed a gentle hand on his arm. All they can do now is obey. Silence fell over them as the weight of her words sank in. In this world, until you held power over your own fate, you were nothing more than someone else's property. And for these maids, that was a reality they would never escape, unless they found the strength to change it. These maids may be stunning to look at, but they're empty shells, beautiful facades without souls. Never forget this. In a world where only the strong devour strength, weak, the only way to break free from your fate is to grow stronger. Even if your destiny is written in stone, don't surrender. The strides you're making now far outshine the timid hesitations of your former self. Chapter 119, The Last Auction Item. The grand hall fell silent as Du Gubo's unexpected words echoed through the air. Cheng Xiao and Du Guyan exchanged astonished looks. Neither had ever heard the usually reserved Du Gubo speak with such conviction. After a moment, Cheng Xiao cleared her throat and asked, Is there any way to make ordinary people without soul power into soul masters? Du Gubo offered a wry smile. You'd like to change their fates? I admire your ambition, but it's unrealistic. If anyone could train into a soul master regardless of soul power, we'd see legions of them overnight, and the Wuhun Palace would never allow that to happen. Du Guyan frowned. But without the palace's oversight, the nobles would enslave even more commoners than they do now. Precisely, Du Gubo replied. Awakening a martial spirit demands a staggering investment, so vast that neither empire could shoulder the cost alone. Yet, since the aristocracy controls the lion's share of the wealth, any imperial attempt to step in would ignite a rebellion. The emperor simply lacks the means to force the issue. He paused, locking eyes with both of them. This is the real reason every soul master today yearns to join the Wuhun Palace. Despite its flaws, it remains the only institution capable of protecting those who have no power of their own. After all, without the Wuhun Palace, none of you would ever have the chance to awaken your martial souls, Du Gubo said gravely. As for those talented soul masters who refuse to join us, we'll track them down and deal with them. Wuhun Palace will never tolerate potential rivals. We won't let stray power grow into a threat. Cheng Xiao exhaled slowly. Du Gubo's words had sharpened his understanding of the palace's iron-fisted policies. Bibi Dong, the current leader, was relentless. Some would even call her mad when it came to safeguarding her authority. Yet what puzzled him most was her choice of consort, that lone wolf from the Soul Palace. With her status, she could have recruited any prodigy in the realm, and instead she selected him, a man of untamed talent and stirrings of rebellion. A clear, resonant chime cut through the murmurs of the auction hall, drawing every gaze to the crystalline dais at its center. There, an elderly man with snowy white hair stepped forward, folding his hands behind his back. A warm smile lit his weathered face. The auction is now open, he announced in a rich, steady voice. Should you find an item that catches your eye, do not hesitate. Make your bids known. Du Gubo leaned toward Cheng Xiao and said in a low, even tone, Let's put it up for auction. The moment the silver-haired auctioneer appeared on the crystal dais, the restless murmur of the crowd died away. Every pair of eyes was fixed on the stage, eager for the spectacle to begin. After all, only the very wealthy could afford admission here, and for them, possessing rare curiosities was more urgent than ever. "Well, I can see you're all eager," the auctioneer announced with a warm smile, sweeping his gaze over the assembled bidders. "So let's waste no time." He straightened his robes, raised his voice, and declared, "The auction starts now. Place your bids." Clad in opulent silks that caught the light with every movement, the old man surveyed the sea of faces below. He knew that true deep pockets sat in the front row VIP seats. Everyone else might talk a big game, but only the aristocrats and power brokers would open their purses without hesitation. The rest, he thought, were simply window shoppers hoping to look rich. And tonight, nobody was leaving empty-handed. The auctioneer's gavel rose in the air. "Ladies and gentlemen, feast your eyes on our star lot tonight." His voice boomed through the cavernous hall. At his signal, servants peeled back an ebony curtain behind the long crystal dais. A sudden flash of light bathed the room, then dimmed to reveal a suit of supple armor, its surface a swirl of storm gray and slate blue. "This," the auctioneer declared, "is known as Fu Qing." It was seized from a Contralel Evel warrior in a stroke of sheer fortune. Our resident appraiser affirms that no finer materials exist anywhere in the realms. Fibers, enchanted for resilience, tempered by a rare alloy mined in the abyssal fissure. He paused for effect, eyes sweeping the crowd. In testing, Fu Qing withstood a full-powered strike from a Soul Emperor without so much as a scratch. Its true upper limit remains uncharted. A muffled gasp ran through the bidders. Fu Qing's reputation as the only armor capable of shrugging off a Soul Emperor's wrath had preceded it. "If you're serious about protection," the auctioneer continued with a sly grin, "don't let your purse strings hold you back. We open bidding at 30,000 gold soul coins." No sooner had he spoken than paddles shot into the air. A chorus of determined voices rose in competitive crescendo. The race for Fu Qing had begun. Cheng Xiao barely glanced at the soft armor laid out on the auction table. It held little appeal for him. After all, he had mastered shadow power to such an extent that he could forge weapons or armor from his own abilities. Why bother with someone else's handiwork? His companion, Douluo Yan, felt differently. To ordinary soul masters, a set of soft armor capable of saving a life was a prized possession. Even if its limits were unknown, it was said strong enough to deflect attacks from a Soul Emperor. When the white-haired auctioneer finished his introduction, several bidders eagerly raised their paddles. For more than 10 minutes, the price climbed steadily until Douluo entered the fray. No one wanted to gamble against a name of his stature. Within moments, the final bid of 100,000 gold soul coins stood unchallenged, and the soft armor was sold. The crowd murmured its approval. In this world of soul-enhanced warriors, a reputation like Douluo's was not so easily ignored. "Be bold, Yan," Douluo murmured, lifting his paddle once more. "If we don't secure this light armor now, we risk giving our rival the upper hand, and I'd rather not think what'll happen to our family if we cross him." Douluo Yan's heart thudded in his chest. "Grandpa, can we really afford to bid so high?" A confident smile curved Douluo's lips. "After all these years as a titled Douluo, I can't be short even 100,000 gold soul coins. Besides, my ties to Prince Shuexing of the Heavenly Dew Empire ensure I have more than enough reserves." At that, the auctioneer rapped his gavel. 100,000 gold soul coins. Do I hear more? With the final pound of the hammer, the first lot was settled without a hitch. Now the auction moved on to an array of rarities, gleaming swords and polearms of master craftsmanship, sacks of legendary medicinal herbs, priceless relics whispering with ancient power, iridescent soul beast eggs, and even fragments of treasure maps promising hidden fortunes. Cheng Xiao watched dispassionately, none of it catching his interest. Then came the second-to-last lot of the day. A small wooden platform rolled forward, bearing a girl no older than 12 or 13. Despite her youth, her figure was astonishingly mature, curves provocatively defined, and her pale face trembled with timidity. Under the chandelier's glow, she seemed a living porcelain doll, fragile yet undeniably alluring. The moment she appeared, the entire hall shifted. Bidders exchanged heated glances, The air crackled with desire. As the auctioneer raised his paddle, silence fell. Every man in the room knew they were about to squander fortunes for the chance to claim her. One after another, the bidders stepped up, refusing to be outdone, and drove the price steadily to 200,000. At that point, the momentum stalled, until Ning Fengji, leader of the Seven Treasures Kyle sect, made an unexpected move and pushed the bid to 300,000. A stunned hush rippled through the hall. Today's auction was filled with surprises. Not only had the formidable Douluo Bo appeared, but even the head of a major sect had come to take part. Douluo Bo rubbed his chin, a sly smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Old fox," he murmured, "to pay so handsomely for this young woman, he must have some deeper motive." Around him, several would-be bidders averted their eyes, embarrassed to have been outmatched so thoroughly. Meanwhile, Cheng Xiao leaned back in his plush chair, watching the drama unfold with mild interest. The final lot hadn't appeared yet, and if tonight's auction ended without one last standout item, it would be a disappointing finish. He silently hoped the next reveal would prove worth the wait. Chapter 120. Auction Trouble. The auction was unfolding smoothly. Although every lot on display was undeniably rare, none held any truly earth-shattering value, so nearly all the bidding came from the back rows. The front seats, normally reserved for the realm's most powerful sects, lay conspicuously empty. Take the Qibao Glazed sect, for instance. Despite their vast wealth, they'd offered only 300,000 yuan to secure the rescue of a single girl. As for the other items, hardly anyone bothered to lift a paddle. "Ladies and gentlemen," announced the white-haired auctioneer, a benevolent smile curving his lips as he accepted an intricately carved box from a maid. "Our next and final lot of the evening." He placed the box gently upon the table without yet opening it. "This weapon was discovered quite by accident in the depths of Stardew Forest," he continued. "Preliminary analysis shows that its forging materials have never before been seen on the mainland. Consequently, we are unable to offer any reliable appraisal." With deliberate care, the old man flipped open the lid. Nestled inside was a pair of gloves, dark leather etched with faint ancient runes, a soft, almost imperceptible hum of power emanating from them. The moment those gloves came into view, Cheng Xiao felt his heart snap to attention. A thrill of recognition pulsed through him, as if the gloves themselves were calling out to his very soul. Cheng Xiao leaned forward, his eyes locked on the pair of gloves displayed under the glass. To any casual onlooker, they were simply masterfully crafted items, but to him, they represented something far greater. As he stared, a vision flickered through his mind's eye. An invincible warrior radiating pure destruction, flanked by a host of colossal dragons whose scales gleamed like living fire. "Kid," Douluo Bo murmured, leaning in when he sensed Cheng Xiao's aura shift. "What's on your mind?" "These gloves," Cheng Xiao replied without glancing away. "They're exactly what I need." Douluo Bo nodded, understanding immediately. He didn't know every detail of Cheng Xiao's plan, but he trusted his friend's instincts. If Cheng Xiao said those gloves were essential, then they were worth pursuing, no matter the cost. From the auction stage, the auctioneer cleared his throat. "Ladies and gentlemen, this exquisite pair of gloves is truly priceless. Who will be the first to place a bid?" A voice rang out from the crowd. "Hold on, what's the starting price?" The auctioneer smiled, tapping his gavel for attention. "Patience, please. We'll open bidding at 10,000 gold coins." He swept his gaze over the assembled bidders. "Now, who dares to take the floor?" Cheng Xiao's lips curved into a quiet smile as he caught Douluo Bo's eye. "Watch this," he whispered, then raised his paddle, ready to claim the gloves that would change everything. The grand hall fell silent as the auctioneer raised his gavel. "Ladies and gentlemen, though the true origin of this item eludes us, our chief appraiser assures you it is nothing short of extraordinary." He gestured toward the table where a single, silvery glove lay under a crystal spotlight. From the side, the white-haired appraiser leaned forward, his pale eyes scanning every corner of the room before settling on the distinguished figure in the front row, Imperial Marshal Ji Long. Every test they ran hinted at a bond with a dragon-type soul beast, or perhaps even a dragon soul master. And in this entire auction house, the only known dragon soul artifact belonged to Gaelong himself. Yet the marshal sat impassively, as if he'd never claimed it. "Because I know you're all eager," the auctioneer continued, clearing his throat. "We'll open the bidding at 100,000 gold soul coins. Who will make the first offer?" A voice rang out from the back. 150,000! Murmurs rippled through the crowd, but before anyone else could speak, another bid cut in crisply. 200,000! The gavel hovered. The tension in the room soared. Who would dare go higher, and would Imperial Marshal Ji Long finally reveal his hand? The auction hall buzzed with tension as bids on the mysterious glove climbed ever higher. In moments, the price had shot up to 600,000 yuan, a sum so steep it was almost unthinkable. 600,000 once, 600,000 twice. The auctioneer, an elderly man with shock white hair, raised his hammer, his voice trembling with excitement. 600,000 yuan far exceeded the auction house's expectations. After all, the glove's origins were so obscure that the house had treated it like a hot potato, an intriguing prize to be sure, but a risky one to sell without any firm appraisal. Just as the auctioneer was about to bring down his gavel, a calm voice cut through the din. 800,000. All eyes swung toward the speaker. Douluo, renowned among spirit masters by the fearsome moniker Poison, had finally spoken. 800,000, the auctioneer stammered, startled beyond words. He knew Douluo's reputation for valuing rare artifacts, but never had he imagined such an aggressive leap in bidding. What secret did this glove hold that only someone of Douluo's caliber could recognize? At once, the hall fell silent. Those who had been on the verge of bidding backed away, unwilling to challenge the Poison Spirit Master's formidable offer. The white-haired auctioneer struggled to regain his composure, hammer poised in midair. For a heartbeat, no one dared breathe. Then, with a single rap, the gavel fell, signaling that Douluo had claimed the glove for 800,000 yuan. The crowd erupted in subdued murmurs, all wondering what hidden power or priceless knowledge lay locked within that unassuming leather glove. Cheng Xiao stared in astonishment when Douluo calmly raised his bid to 800,000 yuan. Only moments earlier, at 600,000, Cheng had already been tempted to fall back on Ningrongrong's golden credit token to cover the cost. He hadn't expected Douluo to top that so effortlessly and so generously. "Thank you," Cheng Xiao said, smiling. "Honestly, I don't know what you plan to do with this relic, but if you want it, it's yours." Douluo beamed at the words, and Poison Douluo couldn't suppress a pleased grin. Meanwhile, Ning Fengji, who had been reaching for his camera to snap a photo of the artifact, paused and lowered his hand. The Qibao glazed sect could easily afford 800,000 yuan, but Ning Fengji understood the unspoken rule. You don't push a fellow titled Douluo into a bidding war, especially not over an ancient weapon. It wasn't fear, but respect that made him concede. With that, the transaction was sealed, and the small group relaxed, each satisfied that the deal had been fair and the tension of the moment finally dissipated. Cheng Xiao relaxed, convinced the bidding had stalled, until an expectant hush fell over the hall, and Imperial Marshal Gei Long, seated in the front row, coolly raised his paddle. 1.5 million, he announced, his voice calm but unmistakable. The auctioneer froze, baton midair, as murmurs rippled through the crowd. Cheng Xiao and Douluo, who had already bid 800,000, stared in surprise at Gei Long's sudden jump of 700,000. At that moment, the marshal caught their eyes and inclined his head toward Douluo. "Your Majesty, forgive my boldness," he said with a courteous smile. "This object holds great importance for me. I hope your Majesty will grant me the opportunity to secure it." Douluo laughed, his paddle lifting almost at once. "Marshal Gei Long, this is an auction. None of us bargained for an easy win." He paused for effect, then declared 1,800,000. Responding to the Emperor's challenge, the auctioneer stoked the tension. Rapping his gavel briskly, he announced the new high bid, 1,800,000. The room hummed with anticipation. This was no mere artifact sale, but a clash between two of the realm's greatest figures. Gei Long's gavel came down hard. 2 million. He didn't know exactly what these gloves did, but something deep inside him insisted they were priceless. So when the auctioneer called for a higher bid, he didn't hesitate. 2.2 million, 2.5, 2.8, 3 million. At the moment Gilong barked out, 3 million, Dugu bowed out with a broad grin. Well played, Imperial Marshal, he said, his tone warm with genuine respect. You can drive up a price to 3 million on a whim. I lack the funds to match you. I withdraw. Dugubo leaned back, eyes closed, as though his previous bids had been nothing more than empty bravado. Gilong's heart thundered in his chest. 3 million was far beyond anything he'd planned to spend. He ground his teeth, fists clenching so tightly his knuckles cracked, but there was no one left to challenge. He'd won, and his victory felt sour. The auction hall fell into a tense hush as the auctioneer peered out at the sea of bidders. 3 million? Anyone wish to go higher? He called, his voice brimming with anticipation. No further bids? In that case, the hammer will. 4 million. Every head snapped toward the sudden shout. Gilong, leader of the Seven Treasures glazed sect, had raised his paddle, though until this moment he hadn't bid at all. The hammer froze in midair, and the auctioneer's smile vanished. Ning Fengji, who had been confident he'd secured the lot for 3 million, looked on in stunned silence. He hadn't expected Gilong to jump in at the very last moment with such a steep increase. Around them, murmurs rippled through the crowd. Gilong's daring move had stunned even the most seasoned bidders. The auctioneer cleared his throat and adjusted his spectacles. We have a new highest bid, 4 million. Do I hear 4.1? Ning Fengji swallowed hard. His eyes flicked to his purse, then back to Gilong. At this price, he simply didn't have the funds to continue. Defeat flashed in his eyes. He'd been outmaneuvered at the final stroke. Going once, going twice. With a firm rap of his gavel, the auctioneer brought down the hammer. Sold to Gilong at 4 million. A wave of applause and astonished chatter swept the hall as Gilong allowed himself a self-satisfied smirk. Ning Fengji bowed his head, already plotting how he might turn this loss into his next advantage.